All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast. But the QA is the important part. Stands for question and answer. We like to make this an interactive conversation. Get that energy up this week. I'm feeling real good. I've got a show lineup here that I'm really excited to talk about, and we want to dive right in. Gives us a chance to sort out our feelings on the week that happened before us. You know, any tech stories that we've been following up on, and maybe some news broke over the weekend that we want to chat that out too. And I'm already seeing an incredible list of names here ready to jump into some fun stuff to talk about. Now, I have a really heavy news block to get through, so I want to chew through that. I've got a ton of housekeeping. I've been threatening y'all with some videos and stuff like, oh, you know, who knows when I'll be able to finish this video. Well, a bunch of them finished. Like, where I've been a little quiet for the last month, the last week was really super busy, and I've got another pretty busy week ahead of me with some, again, really interesting stuff that I hope folks will enjoy. And I kind of want to leave the last section of this podcast. You know, when we kind of go long, I say the show's about 2 hours, then it pushes to like 3. I would like the chat to decide how much we might want to talk about something like Samsung Unpacked. Unpacked was last week. Samsung showed off a bunch of devices, and I'm not sure how excited I am to talk about those devices, but I left a movie theater on Friday night the happiest I've been about a comic book movie in a really long time. So that's going to be for the last section of the podcast. If the chat would rather spend a whole bunch of time talking about Superman, we can whittle down Unpacked, and I can share a couple brief thoughts, and we can move on from that. I'm leaving it up to you. Or I should say, I'm leaving it up to the people who are here for the live broadcast. Apologies for someone who didn't get a vote if you're listening to the audio replay after the fact. Oh, I can hide this banner now. I posted up, please keep Superman discussion spoiler free. And see, and I say that. I went out of my way to say, hey guys, let's be respectful, okay? And let's keep the Superman discussion spoiler free for anyone who hasn't seen the movie yet. And what do I get immediately? H2O Taku. Just can't help but wade in. Actually, Superman is Clark Kent. I'm sorry I had to spoil it for everyone. And you see, this is the kind of discourse. I couldn't even finish that, sorry. No, it was pretty funny, H2O Taku. I enjoyed that. It looks like Roth Sathi is saying, we got some popcorn at the ready. Diago saying, hello all. We got murder. Murder is saying, Samsung, let's talk about your favorite shoes instead. I'm so boring. Are you talking about shoes? I like Adidas. I like my Adidas, and I'm unfortunately into like the old man air cushion Adidas, not like the cool, hip, young, sporty Adidas. It's real bad. But then I also do enjoy a couple different kinds of boots. So right now my favorite boots are Solo Wear, hand-stitched work boots. They're real nice. Okay, so I hope everybody out there, enjoyed, had a lovely weekend. We had a great weekend. I actually just kind of took some time off. Yesterday I was getting all amped up. I'm wrapping up my time with the Vivo X200 Ultra. This was a loaner. I'm going to be handing it back to the rightful owner, who's going to follow up on some really awesome content for just a beast mode phone. One of the most interesting devices to talk about this year, but I had to front load all that work, right? You get a phone for a limited amount of time, and I still want to do like a camera deep dive and maybe some comparison stuff. So all that work has to go up front, and now I can hand the phone back off and get that backlog pushed out. There's going to be a wild camera deep dive on the Vivo X200 Ultra. There's going to be an interesting comparison that I'm re-editing right now between the Vivo and the Xiaomi. And then I've been checking out some things like my pals over at Notebook Check did a smartphone camera comparison. And again, I have to pick on them just a little bit. that smartphone camera comparison, I want you to click on it. I think they did good work, but they did good work in a really limited capacity. So they get to a section on low light performance, and you can kind of tell that it's like the most basic auto mode. Maybe they're using a night mode on some phones, maybe they aren't on others. And I feel like their conclusion doesn't support the hardware evidence that we've seen. So for me to do that kind of feature to feature comparison is a lot of work to do it, I think, to do it right. So all of that just takes time. So of course, this is where we've got to shout out the time it takes to produce that stuff. This type of work would not be possible if I were just a YouTuber. This work is only possible because of the generosity of my patrons, all of the people over on patreon.com/somegadgetguy. That's literally what subsidizes all of the videos on my channel, but it's the only way I can take the time to do a longer form camera deep dive. It's one of the reasons why I've been doing fewer of those really super chewy, in-depth, long-form videos, but it's also because I feel we want to focus on the gadgets and hardware that are deserving of that kind of examination. And then we can also just talk about how other smartphones might compare if they're not camera specialist devices. So, jumping in, where did I tangented myself. You know what? I was going to say something else. I think we can just move on. I think we can just get into this and move on. um, Oh, sorry. I just saw this comment, so I just want to highlight it. From Lelouch X8. Hey Juan, been watching you for a while. Love your LG videos. Huge fan of the V60 until the dreaded USB issue started. Now using a OnePlus Open, and I love it. Still missing LG. Would you recommend a V50? If you had a V60 and you liked the V60, I think the V50 is still like a really fun companion device. I think LGs always have a beautiful second life as media devices, backup cameras, not backup camera for your car, but backup as in a secondary camera to your other main phone. And especially when you have a OnePlus Open, that could be kind of a fun combo. But with the V50, we are starting to get kind of long in the tooth. So the camera hardware on the V50 is probably outpaced by your OnePlus Open. I don't think it's going to be a huge benefit photography-wise. For shooting video, having good audio, yeah, the V50 is still a champ. Like if you wanted to do podcasty kinds of things, the V50 is still, I don't use it often, but I still bring it out because it is one of the best. H2 Otaku, and also this is fair too. H2 Otaku saying LG phones are too old now. That's actually kind of fair. My V50 is in excellent condition because I stopped using it kind of at the tail end. I stopped using it as a daily at the tail end of the V60. And now you'd have to be dealing with battery degradation. Even if they were stored well, you don't know what condition all the internals are in. It's tough. I don't like letting go. I have a phone museum, but sometimes we just gotta let go. And son John, I got my OnePlus Pad 3 and it's definitely a beast. Are you going to give a full or long-term review of it? I am absolutely going to be revisiting that, and I'm also going to try and use it as a showpiece for a video I have coming up on gaming performance, talking about tablets and gaming and some of the experiences people can look out for. So I am more excited to work in OnePlus Pad 3 additional coverage than maybe even when, and then maybe even where I was with the OnePlus Pad 2, and the OnePlus Pad 2 was a great tablet. So let's jump in. Oh, Barry Johnson. Everyone say, hey, Barry. Hilarious one. All I wear for work shoes or dress shoes, period, are Solo Bears. Because you have taste. I love Solo Bears so much. All right, let's get this out of the way. We're gonna do a little housekeeping here because I have a little housekeeping to fulfill. Where do I want to start? You know what? Let's start on the actual website, thesomegadgetguy.com. I need to stop doing that because there is no "the" in my website name. Published this week, Sony WH-1000 XM6 bested by a budget headphone. This is part 2 of my 3-part look at the Sony XM6 cans. And I just wanted to sort of shift things up. Instead of making a 30-minute long review of the XM6, I've got a video that focuses just on the headphones. I've got a video that just tries to take a philosophical look at what would happen if we were to spend less. And then obviously there's going to be a part 3. Then I'm so proud of this video. It is doing garbage traffic on YouTube right now. It is not getting any views. YouTube does not want to put it in front of anyone who's interested in battery tech. Instead, they're letting it die by sending it probably only to people who are like iPhone fans or something like that, because algorithms be algorithming like that. This is the Jackery Home Power 3000 solar generator, peace of mind during the scary times. This is the smallest 3 kilowatt hour battery on the market today. Now, that's a real big battery, but it's the smallest shell for a humongous capacity. And this is another topic that I've just been really passionate about, even though YouTube rewards you with no traffic unless your channel is just dedicated to solar and RV lifestyle. You try and have a broad YouTube channel. I am some gadget guy. I like gadgets. That doesn't work anymore. YouTube poops all over you. So I'm gonna keep doing this. I hate what YouTube has become. This is such a critical product category as we start talking about climate change and more concerning weather anomalies. Like, these can't be anomalies anymore if we have fire season all year round in Southern California. It's not an anomaly if an area in the South floods every year. Every year is a once-in-a-decade massive flood. We have to be proactive in protecting our families, protecting our just keeping ourselves safe, giving ourselves the tools to properly get out of situations like this, and following the events that we had out here in California in January. I've always been concerned about earthquakes and wildfires, but let me tell you, your perspective shifts when you do get an evacuation warning. You can see the plume of smoke is right behind your house and you have to leave to keep your family safe, and you don't know if you're going to have a home tomorrow. That really changes your outlook on what's going on. So these tools that we have at our disposal, this isn't just like a hypothetical anymore. I think more and more areas are going to have to deal with this. The flip side of that would be if you live up north. Maybe you have to deal with more extreme freezing conditions during the winter. Well, wouldn't it be nice to have some additional gadgets that can help you power things if ice takes out power lines? This is the kind of conversation we just need to face more directly. It doesn't feel good, but what does feel good is having stuff prepared, and this stuff comes in clutch, and then you've kept your family safe. That feels real good. What feels worse is not being prepared and having to scramble. I am so happy to be partnering with Jackery on this conversation, on this video. I think their products deliver what the company claims. I'm not being paid to say any of this in this podcast. This podcast not sponsored by Jackery, but this video approaches some of these topics. I think we have a little fun. I think we get a little serious, and hopefully it just starts you on the investigation of whether or not these tools would be the right fit for your needs. So, Jackery Home Power 3000 solar generator video, that's good to go. Then we had a little family affair. OnePlus Watch 3 43 millimeter, a smaller OnePlus watch. This is not a watch for me, and my wife won't take it off her wrist. It took 36 hours for my wife to say, "No, I think I'm done with the Pixel Watch." She had a Pixel Watch 2. Her Pixel Watch 1 literally disintegrated. It completely disassembled on her wrist. It just became a small collection of little parts and a little battery. Her Pixel Watch 2 has been fine, but she has to keep it in like a little bumper shell, the Spigen armor case, so it's not quite as small as it might otherwise be. I put the OnePlus watch on her wrist. She wore it, like I said, for 36 hours. She did a workout with it. She did a hard run. She got data that she'd never gotten from her Pixel watch. She got sleep tracking that never seemed to work well from her Pixel watch, and now she's done. So for all the Fitbit stuff that we were worried about, the OnePlus O Health seems to have done her just fine. And then we talk about the whole rest of the watch, what kind of technologies in the watch, and what you can expect. It is wild. Like, when we talk about those feature differences, I still get people like, oh, but I mean, it's like pretty much the same if you use this other watch. And you're like, no, it really matters that my wife is getting about 3 days of runtime on a single charge, and then she flipped out when she charged it, and it only took about a half hour to top off. Like double the runtime and half the charging time. It's getting her to the point where she's strongly considering a OnePlus for her next phone. She just doesn't like how big the OnePlus phones have been. But that battery made a huge impact on her perception of, well, I don't have to like sleep with it and then plug it into charge when I wake up and then go out on a workout and then plug it in again before bedtime. Right, you just run it for 3 days straight. Oh, but what if I don't need speech to text replies? Well, then you charge it once for 40 minutes and then you run it for a week in fitness tracker mode. It's good. You're good. Let me get a little drink of coffee. This housekeeping is gonna take a bit. We still have a bit more to go through. Oh, Ron Guido, I love that. Thanks so much for supporting. This is the kind of support I'm talking about. Ron says, I sent that Jackery video to my dad. He is looking at it as a possible replacement for his aging natural gas generator. So, depending on your region, like for example, here in Southern California, even when it's kind of hazy and overcast, I can still keep topping off some solar generators. Like we get pretty good sun out here, even when we've got a little light cloud coverage. Obviously, you've got to weigh your region. You got to factor that in. If you're in a place like Seattle, solar might not make as big a difference in these kinds of situations, and you'd want to look at gas-powered or natural gas-powered kinds of generators and stuff. So again, I feel like it's multifaceted. If he's already got a gas generator, you could look at augmenting that with some kind of battery backup and you'd have the best of both worlds, right? So it's about piecing together the strategy that makes the most sense for your family. Oh, we got Kia Too Technical saying, what's up? What is up? And JGJ saying, now that the Pebble is open source, I may consider getting one, still keeping my eyes peeled. I need to follow up with the Pebble project because I thought we were supposed to be getting our watches shipped this month. So I need to see what's going on there. But if there's any watch that I feel really could now, today, give Wear OS a run for its money, I want long battery life, and I want speech-to-text notifications, and I'd like to have all-day heart rate tracking. That's what I have on my OnePlus. That's why I stick with OnePlus. That's what I like on my TicWatch. That's why I stick with the TicWatch. But if a Pebble can do all that, I'm good. I can move on. I don't need to stay with Android on my wrist. Get this out of the way. So we also had a few things hit the Patreon. Some of these are early access, so not everybody can jump in on. There's a separate tier for early access. Every video does go to the Patreon, and that's where I do all my 4K videos. But just as a nice perk for people who are contributing more, I do hold videos when I can for early access, and that's where we can find part 3 of my Sony XM6 comparison videos. Part 2 was comparing the Sonys against a less expensive headphone, and part 3 is what might you expect if you spent more than what Sony is charging for the XM6. So just kind of a flip on what pricing might look like, moving up the food chain, moving down the food chain, and how there are different solutions for different tiers. We could talk about this later in the podcast. I posted my spoiler-free thoughts on Superman, immediately leaving the theater. I was writing most of this in the car. I was so motivated to talk about this film. Then this will be coming to the website probably Wednesday. I have a full write-up on the OnePlus Buds 4. Really solid pair of earbuds. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised. Literally in the title of the review is, what else can we say? Because I think a lot of people are going to kind of glean, earbuds, even premium and expensive priced earbuds. We're kind of reaching a feature set on our Bluetooth that, it's good. And then this was just kind of a fun little one-off. I'm not going to show any of the video here on the podcast, but a crazy twist on NES emulation. I found this new Nintendo emulator, and it does a wild thing with your old Nintendo ROMs. And if you want to see more, you can head to the Patreon, and that's where I did a test with a couple different ROMs, a couple different games: Blaster Master, Ninja Gaiden, Super Mario 3, Tetris. I always have to play Tetris. But it's this really cool sort of take on emulation where it's not, hey, can we make this authentic to what it was like to play the Nintendo? But what if we tried to make old Nintendo games look more modern? And taking the ROM data and making the output look more three-dimensional. So I had a lot of fun kind of putting that together. And it's that video isn't like me reviewing it. You're literally just listening to me go like, whoa, because that's what's pretty great. Oh, Murder! Hey, thanks. So Murder says, I ordered a Pebble 2. My Amazfit blip is getting old. RJ is also a fan of the Amazfit Active 2. The Amazfit watches are great. I still hold them to being more fitness trackers than smartwatches, as I believe, please correct me if I have this wrong, because I'm not super in deep on their entire product line. For Amazfit, I think it's only the Balance and the Balance 2 that are offering the full support for that speech-to-text notification replies. That's one of the things I care about the most, is I want to be able to reply on my wrist without having to pull out my phone. But Murder is also saying the latest cheaper Pebble update on track to ship the first 2,000 to 4,000 units last week of July, first week of August. The rest will ship out in August. So I didn't order the Pebble 2 Core. I got the fancier one. I wanted the one that was going to be sort of the Pebble 2 time heart rate version way back in the day. So I know I'm even further back. Now it looks like, because of the project and some of the delays and stuff, like I might not get my watch until Christmas time. So we'll see. Kickstarter be kickstartering like that. This stuff is tough. So that's going to do it for housekeeping. I'm actually kind of impressed with myself that we got that done by 9:20 in the AM. Everything we're going to be talking about this week, all of the show notes, all of the housekeeping, all of the links to articles, everything will be available on this week's podcast post on somegadgetguy.com. This is episode 404. You shouldn't have anything there, right? 404, not found. No, 404 is actually, I think, one of the heaviest hitting podcast rundowns that I've put together in a while. I'm actually pretty stoked. News be heavy, but I'm kind of stoked. You can kind of feel like I'm a little higher energy this week. I'm thinking this is going to be fun. Quick pause before we move on. JMan150 gifting a tier 1 sub to Rotsathi over on the Twitch, and subscribed at tier 1. J-Man has been subscribed for 26 months. So thank you so much for supporting production. My computer setup is in worse shape than it's been in a couple weeks. I'm trying an experiment where I'm going to put my Surface laptop in as my main workstation and only use my giant workstation for things like gaming and rendering video. So I'll edit video from my laptop and then move that to my workstation and render the video there. That means My audio setup is even more suspect than it usually is. So you get yet another a cappella fanfare of glory. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. People who are sharing, people who are contributing, joining these conversations. This chat is critical for where I drive the direction of this podcast and my videos. And of course, for those who have the means, if you're supporting on a streaming service like Twitch, or if you are able to join a month on the Patreon, that helps so much. It keeps this machine moving. It keeps the lights on here in the Gadget Lab. So, Baseball Super just saying, hey Juan and Gadget peeps, what up? Let me get this out of the way, and we're gonna jump into a news block. I have to get this up here. So, I'm only bringing this up because I feel this is an example of the concerns we have when we talk about things like regulatory capture. For the first Trump administration, we saw the FCC dismantle work that had taken years, a decade, to put in place. Something like net neutrality was a 10-year fight in the courts against Verizon, and it was undone in a moment. And we keep playing this stupid game of ping pong, where we build up better policy under liberal administrations, and then conservatives just kind of whack it all down. But when we look at, like, what are the mechanisms that help safeguard consumers, we've got the FCC, we've got the FTC, and we've got the DOJ that can walk in and say, hey, we don't like how this company is doing business. So I think this is just an example. I have to criticize the title of this article just a little bit. This is from my man crush, John Brodkin, and I've almost never read one of his articles and thought, no, I've got to pick on John for just a second here. But this title is kind of irking me. Trump's DOJ seems annoyed about having to approve T-Mobile's latest merger. And this makes it sound like such a small, petty, oh, they're just kind of bugged by it. Oh, we have to approve this merger. There are 3 major wireless carriers in the United States. There's T-Mobile, there's AT&T, and there's Verizon. And T-Mobile is looking to acquire the biggest share of US Cellular. And that's a pretty big deal. US Cellular operates in this kind of region by region state. They're not one easily cohesive nationwide carrier service. So AT&T is getting a little chunk of US Cellular, Verizon is getting a little chunk of US Cellular, and T-Mobile is paying more than twice what AT&T and Verizon are paying combined for the biggest chunk of US Cellular. So this, I believe, this creates something of an issue. We have less and less competition in the wireless space. We already saw this from previous mergers, like when Sprint got bought up by T-Mobile. We're watching this consolidation of communications equipment, communications platforms and services. So the DOJ, let me get back into the article here. Assistant Attorney General Gail Slater of the Justice Department's Antitrust Division said in a 900-word statement that the deal and 2 related transactions will consolidate yet more spectrum in the Big Three's oligopoly, which controls more than 80% of the mobile wireless spectrum in the country. She said the top 3 carriers control more than 90% of the mobile subscriptions in the United States. Despite that, the DOJ said it closed its investigation into the merger and will not ask a court for an injunction to prevent T-Mobile from buying US Cellular assets. So I have a problem because you have the token effort. Hey, we're the Department of Justice, and it's our job to investigate antitrust or anti-competitive business practices. And we're bothered. But there's nothing we're going to do. So when we're looking at the numbers here, when we're looking at the scale of how these companies can acquire their competitors and reduce competition, every time we reduce competition, obviously it gets better for consumers, right? I believe that this is worthy of a token investigation. At least go through the motions of looking at the information, looking at the data, and you know, I don't know that U.S. Cellular is so precious that we need it to be the competitive foil against T-Mobile's amoeba spread over the end. Like that's not it. Let's not make it histrionic. Let's not go overboard. But US Cellular did exist as a competitive option in some regions. And the impact on those regions could be negative, not having another player in that space. So I what I'm bothered by is the DOJ felt this was important enough to comment on in a 900-word statement, but the ultimate conclusion of that statement was, nah, it's just going to happen. That's why I'm bothered. See, John Brodkin's headline is just, oh, someone in Trump is annoyed. If we over-emotionalize our headlines for massive corporate infrastructure deals, then it diminishes the impact of a $4 billion parts merger. AT&T is paying $1 billion for a couple regional assets. Verizon is paying $1 billion for a couple regional assets. And T-Mobile is paying $4.4 billion for the core big middle chunk of US Cellular's assets and platform. That's kind of a big deal. Again, for how limited US Cellular's footprint was, that is a pretty big acquisition for T-Mobile to make. And I think it's worthy of some examination of those business practices, or to say, we totally get it, you want to do this, but like when you optioned Sprint, we had to carve out pieces of other parts of your business. And I know it never really materialized, but like Dish was supposed to be that competitive side piece, right? Dish was going to start its own phone network, and that was garbage. We all knew that wasn't really going to be a huge like competition point against like Sprint. From Pup on Tech, I guess that's what happens when you have everyone paid off and they all get a job in the carriers. The second they leave, it's actually insane, the corruption that's going on there. And this one is like, the stakes aren't that high, right? $4.4 billion merger, that's a big deal. I mean, that's big money. That definitely impacts a lot of regions. But at the end of this, it's like, this one would be easy. I'm grossly oversimplifying the political and investigative process here, but I think this one would be easy to do the, hey, we've looked into this, we've investigated, we've got these assurances, T-Mobile is going to make this kind of reparation for this kind of business practice and everything's going to be fine. But they couldn't even do that. All right, moving right along. This one we don't have to spend a lot of time on because it is super depressing. I've been harping on about AI. I think the current slate of AI business practices are pants on head stupid. I opted not to talk about another editorial that just came out saying like OpenAI is actually two editorials. Excuse me, coffee burp there. I'm gonna bring them up now, but I didn't put them in the lineup this week. OpenAI is basically being like examined as like blood in the water, sharks circling. This is a company that's valued at like $300 billion. They just got another $40 billion round of investments, bumping up their share price, valuing the company even higher. And they still don't have any viable business plan, any viable path to profitability. They're just hemorrhaging money, and all the money that they seem to raise looks like it's going back into paying off like their insane data center bills when they had a sweetheart deal with Microsoft to get like low-cost server access. And then they'll complain, oh, but Microsoft is too strict with how we're supposed to monetize and we have to give Microsoft money. And you're like, yeah, because Microsoft has paid you billions and you still can't turn a profit and you want to be on the iPhone for free. I know, what if we give Apple access to ChatGPT and we don't charge them so that we can be on Apple, but then that hits Microsoft data centers and that runs up the electricity bill and the data center bill, but we're not making any money from Apple. That's a great plan, right? And then the other story that I omitted was there's talk of Musk going to Tesla shareholders to say, hey, we need to bail out XAI because XAI bought Twitter. And now, if we want Grok, the stupidest AI, the most fascist of all the AIs, if we want Grok to be good, we've got to keep investing in AI and data centers that are run on gas-powered generators polluting the environment. And so they're going to foot the bill by having Tesla invest in Twitter. Which is that should be so illegal. And Tesla shareholders will probably go with him on this. Like, they opted for his $55 billion payment package. Like, what is Musk doing with your investment that is worth this ridiculousness? So, this is just another follow-up. We have to hold these companies accountable. Microsoft made promises on how much pollution they were going to put up into the environment, and they had a plan, a 10-year plan. We are halfway through their 10-year plan. And the folks over at Windows Central, this one written up by Jez Corden, Microsoft sees its carbon emissions soar on a 168% glut in AI energy demand. Quote, we recognize that we must also bring more carbon-free electricity onto the grids. But we're not. So Google just recently put out their like climate discussion. I forget what they call it. They have this like really pretty PowerPoint presentation that you can download to look at their climate impact. And it's telling, like, we're seeing 20% rises here and 30% rises there. And both of these companies are so proud of how much green energy they're bringing online. But they're also using significantly more power. So the green energy that they're bringing online that they want you to pay attention to is not offsetting polluting power, it's in addition to. So they're using even more power, polluting even more, still burning through ridiculous amounts of fresh water, even with water reclamation processes. Like, Google's like, oh, we're so good at putting used water back into the environment. You're like, yeah, kinda. And so now Microsoft is continuing to show that they are not only not reaching their goals, they're putting out more pollution than they were before. So they wanted to be like carbon neutral by 2030, and now they're putting out roughly 25% more pollution in 2025 than they did in 2020. Even for all of their initiatives bringing green power online, they are leaching in every area. I think Pennsylvania just recently had like we might need to detach Pennsylvania power from the rest of the United States energy grid because of the demand of massive corporations and data centers. We're starting to talk about compartmentalizing the USA power grid because of Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, and Twitter, and kind of Apple in there too. That's real bad. Microsoft is real bad at this because the messaging also just looks so terrible for them as they talk about their AI plans, and their AI plans are not generating a lot of consumer interest. Every single time they say, like Google says, we have 1 billion AI search users. You're like, no, you don't. You have 1 billion people using search, and you interrupted their search to insert AI. You did not have 1 billion people seeking AI. Microsoft is going to do the same thing. We had millions of people sign up for Copilot plans in Microsoft 365, and that's a lie. You changed my subscription without my approval, without my permission, and charged me more for AI tools I did not want. And it took me jumping through hoops to try and find the legacy plan that I could try and go back to. And if they don't get enough traction on their Copilot plans, they'll eventually just cancel their legacy plans. Who's going to fight them? The DOJ? Trump's DOJ for $1 trillion corporation? I don't think so. H2 Otaku. But one, you can't tell all these huge companies what to do. They matter more than the environment. You just have to drink out of those awful paper straws, and that will surely fix everything. I'm sorry, it's my bad. It's my bad. What we need is unhinged, cancerous growth in capitalistic economies, and that's what will fix everything, I'm sure. From Vazikos, Cloudflare starting to not let AI crawlers run without operators. It's beta now, but will be opt-in by default. So good news if it's not too late already. I think, you know what, it might be too late for a lot of publications. It might be too late for a lot of websites, but that Cloudflare story, that's a really big deal. We need to see, even if the pushback isn't perfect, even if the pushback is limited in its ability, we need to see pushback. This is an unsustainable business model. This is going to destroy the livelihoods of your favorite content creators and writers and journalists. Like, it can't go unchallenged. And our government is obviously not up to the task of examining the repercussions of these kinds of business practices over short periods of time to then say, well, maybe this isn't something we want to see happen. Barry Johnson, Trump's DOJ. Do as you please, insert company name, but you also have to do the grabby hands. Because you can do what you want, but monies please, influence all of the politicians with speech, and speech being money, monies. And this is not a podcast about campaign finance reform. We made that joke a couple weeks back. I am not qualified to bring up the intricacies of reforming our campaign process. So, this one, okay. I'm a big old nerd. I think that's been established. I'm a big old nerd who gets in a little too deep on like policy and demographics, and like Superman, I'm very much like Superman. One of the things that's really been triggering me of late are conversations from people who are more privileged, describing for less privileged people what kinds of tech they should just have to deal with. There's like a superiority in a lot of online forums, like on subreddits and on YouTube comments, and this limited, narrow worldview of, I spent a lot of money on this thing and it's the perfect fit for my needs, so everyone should just agree that this is the best. I've been bringing up topics like video output on phones, the ability to plug a phone into another monitor or display or TV, and how it's not just, if you live in a Western society and you're privileged enough to have a computer and a phone, well, why would you want your phone to be a computer? And then you can literally like ignore your neighbor down the street who maybe can't get that laptop for their kid's school, but they had a Galaxy S10, and that Galaxy S10 is probably more powerful than the crappy Chromebook they would have gotten from their school that they can't afford, right? There's a human dignity. I believe broadband access should be monitored and regulated like a utility. It is the backbone, it is the infrastructure for education, for healthcare, for entertainment, for communication, for banking, for everything. And I think anyone who has an argument against that is basically saying, yeah, but F them poor people. So it's become a really big problem, in my opinion, that we have these mid-priced phones that lack this capability, the ability to plug in into a computer screen. Like, for example, I have it here in arm's reach. Here's my OnePlus 12R. This phone is an absolute beast. This phone is more powerful than most entry-level Chromebooks. This is an incredible pocket computer that I cannot plug into a TV. I love OnePlus. My SIM card is in the OnePlus 13. They're one of my all-time favorite brands. Oppo is doing incredible work, except there is one thing being left on the table here that could bring a tech dignity to someone who needed additional functionality. That was a really long wind-up. I'm really lit up about this story. So this is coming by way of TechCrunch, written up by Jagmeet Singh. India's richest man wants to turn every TV into a PC. Now, I got to do a media tech event in India, and the numbers, the populations, the tech outreach is kind of incredible. How India has like circled their wagons and has delivered a payment system so that everyone can participate in digital payments no matter what part of the society they might be in. There's some really tasteless jokes like, oh, you might see a beggar on the street with a QR code, but that matters. Your ability to participate in society and move money around is a really big deal, and India has found this really tactical solution for this type of problem in their society, in their various communities. Every time I bring these stories up, right now, the population of people who own laptops is, I want to say, at around 300 million people in India. Kids will get laptops from their schools, but like the people who really own and use laptops, about 300 million. There are about 700 million people out there using phones. So there is a population of people in India larger than the entire population of the United States who are either phone first or phone only, and they don't have another computer to use. Their entire computing experience is managed through their phone. But we also know there are lots of areas in India. India is a really diverse country, lots of rural areas and lots of developed urban areas, that there are even more people who have TVs. There are so many people who have TVs but also do not have reliable internet access that there are channels on Indian cable that just run like YouTube channels. So you can watch YouTube on your TV even though you're not watching it through like a web browser. Like it's just broadcast YouTube. So there's this plan. Geo Platforms, actually let me just skip, called GeoPC. The service offers a cloud-based PC experience through Geo's set-top box, which comes bundled for free with the Teleco's home broadband service or can be purchased separately for around $64 US, accounting for US currency. Currently in free trial and available via waitlist. Users can access the virtual desktop on their TV by plugging in a keyboard and mouse once they receive an invite and set up their account. India's richest man is trying to get everybody hooked on cloud PC if they don't have access to a proper computer. Now we have a correlating business strategy. What about game streaming, right? I'm a fan of game streaming. If you've got Game Pass or if you're using NVIDIA's setup, RIP Google Stadia, like there's an idea, hey, maybe I don't want to buy a $400 to $800 box and put it under my TV to play my video games if I can run that game through a browser and have another computer stream that game to my TV. That's one possible solution. The subscription on that over a couple years might eclipse the cost of buying a mini gaming PC or a game console or a Nintendo Switch or a Steam Deck or any of these other devices. It's a very personal purchasing recommendation. Often I think a lot of people use that in addition to having some kind of gaming computer. There are 700 million consumers in India who have phones. And the majority of those phones lack the ability to plug into a TV, a monitor, another display. And if we could just bring this exceedingly basic hardware functionality to more mid-ranger phones and more entry-level phones, the idea of someone in India spending $64 on top just for the hardware, then also having to have some kind of broadband plan, which we know the infrastructure doesn't always allow for good broadband access. And something tells me you get someone hooked on cloud PC, you know they're going to need a lot of cloud storage. They're going to need a lot of cloud processing power. It starts as just something that's attached to your broadband or your cable bill. But, you know, if more and more people use it, you've got to roll out more and more infrastructure and fire up more and more data centers and more cloud. Those costs have to rise. But if we could just get people picking up phone and plugging into TV, the vast majority of their computing needs could be handled with more dignity, with more control. Their data is secured here on device, password protected, biometric security. This is not going up to a cloud to work on their documents or edit their videos or do anything else, even gaming. I'm so frustrated because on the surface, it sounds like such a great plan and oh, it's so generous. And yet, to me, it's like yet another example of completely ignoring the practical that's right in front of you right now. It's like, oh, Android 16 finally going to give us a functional desktop mode because Google's going to have to like fork off Chrome OS and lose access. Like, we can't make these companies just do the right thing and give us the right real competition. We've got to do this weird tangent. We got to come at every problem sideways because, oh no, what if we said something nasty about the free market? You want Google to make less money? You're like, what solution are they offering that we don't already own in triplicate? If you have a phone and a laptop and a desktop, or a phone and a tablet and a laptop, or you have more than one computer in your home, you've paid for the same kind of processing power multiple times over. And now with communities of people who likely can't afford to have a phone and a PC, a phone and a computer of some kind, we're going to sell them a cloud PC? A PC they'll never own. A PC they're always renting. And the phone in their pocket is likely as powerful, maybe more powerful, than the PC they can rent for free in addition to their cable or broadband plan. What are we doing as a species? Not even as like a society. We're talking about like different societies. Because this is exactly the kind of thing that could help people in rural America. Let's say you really do only have satellite broadband as your solution. Well, you should be able to do something like duplicate the phone power and use it for something else. You shouldn't need to buy 4 different computers to live your life. You can want to buy 4 different computers. It makes sense to me. I own a really nice laptop. I've got a big beefy workstation, and I'm increasingly dividing what task goes to what computer. But I could very, very easily shift and get the vast majority of my stuff done just on phone compute power these days. It's gotten that good. I'm just lacking these basic tools. So yeah, pretty makes me really agitated. The solution is right there. You've got upward mobility in India. More people are moving up the phone food chain. India used to be a market for the most disposable, least expensive devices, and now every option that gets kind of sent to India is moving up. They're proper mid-ranger, good, powerful daily driver phones at very reasonable prices, and that compute power is going to waste. It's not, but it is. Bradley Larcher, Juan is a nerd. Shocker! And murder. Google wants to turn every Android TV into an ad platform. They even ruined my NVIDIA Shield. Launcher full of ads and recommendations. From Georgie, cloud-based, no thank you. $30 Fire TV stick will do. Bluetooth keyboard and mouse for internet and gamepad for the games, done. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Like, if you're looking at this solely as this is how I achieve entertainment, but I do believe, like, writing documents, putting together spreadsheets. My daughter knows how to use presentation software, PowerPoint style software. She's starting to figure out things like photo editing. She's doing like little composites. She put together an invitation for people to join her production company so that they could shoot a short film. She did the graphics design on it. It looks like a 9-year-old did the graphics design in PowerPoint, but she did it. And it's like, she's doing all of this advanced and aggressive stuff, and the phone processing power could totally get her through that. If she, sorry, I'm repeating myself here, so I'm not gonna keep doing that. The Morlock, capitalism at its finest. You own nothing and rent lease everything. From Murder, in the most loveliest dreams, every TV had a Linux switch. The computing power is there in most TVs. That could not really happen, though, in real life. I'll be curious to see what happens in the EU. Is it the EU or the UK? Someone please correct me if I have this wrong. But I believe there is an investigation happening into regulating how much power a TV can draw. And I think a number of regulatory bodies are looking at trying to restrict how much energy a TV panel can pull. I might have that wrong. I might have just made that up. That could have just been a fever dream. From Gabaletta, it's why I don't understand the pushback on ARM-powered PCs. So much processing power using very little electricity. JGJ, has MediaTek explored display output for their lower tier processors? It's not a MediaTek or a Qualcomm problem. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Show of hands in the chat, who saw my video on, is this the right one? Yeah, this is the right one. They all kind of look alike. Who saw my review of the newest Tank phone? Someone in the chat, because I know the chat's like 20 seconds behind what I'm actually saying right now. Who saw my video on the Tank 4? Let JGJ know one of the things I was most excited about the Tank 4. Because that should directly relate to his answer. His question here, has MediaTek explored display output for their lower tier processors? It's not a processor thing. It's not a MediaTek thing. It's not a Qualcomm thing. It's not a Google Tensor thing. Look at Google. They don't have lower and higher tier processors. But some phones have video output, and some older phones did not. From Amaldi, Google should have had good desktop mode a long time ago, but for the poor of us that have old devices stuck in all versions of Android with locked bootloaders, how we are screwed. It's so disappointing. Like, because you're not wrong. But again, it came from this like almost like corporate bootlicking kind of mentality. Like, what, you want Google to sell fewer Chromebooks? Well, yeah, if I have a desktop mode on my phone and that motivates people to buy fewer computers they don't need, then yes, I do want Google to make less money. And Google doesn't even really make their money that way. Google would still get all the data, all of the behavior, all of the advertising opportunities. They'd even get more advertising opportunities because there are probably people out there who own a phone and can't afford to buy a Chromebook, but they could plug their phone into their TV. And there's a whole other opportunity for Google to leech their user data. They would probably make more money. Oh, you just want them to do something that would help people and be good for business? Is what you sound like if you're criticizing this idea. So John Gao saying, yes, projector phone is sick. Georgie's saying, yes, the inbuilt projector. That's not what I was most excited about on the newest tank. The newest tank has a Dimensity 8300, still a premium. This is still a powerful chip, but it's one tier down from the Dimensity 9000. It's their upper mid-ranger processor. The tank, the newest tank, supports video output from the USB-C. So I can plug this phone into a pair of XR glasses. I can plug this phone into a TV. The desktop mode is fundamentally broken, but you can still do a lot of things even just from screen sharing. You expand the canvas, you can kind of play with that functionality, or entertainment. If I plug glasses in, I fire up VLC, I can watch movies in a nicer way. It's not dependent on the chip. The manufacturer of the phone is making a decision to save money by only giving us USB 2 output. You know how else I know this? Hold on, I'm gonna get up from my desk here. So I'm walking over, and I'm going to my little phone museum here, and you can hear the rustling of paper. The chip in your phone, the processor in your phone, does not determine whether or not your phone supports video output. This is my BlackBerry Key 2. This has a Snapdragon 600 series chip. I can plug my BlackBerry Key 2, the underpowered BlackBerry. Oh, it was so slow. Oh my gosh, it's a communicator phone, and I tried to play Genshin Impact, and I only got like 5 frames per second. I can plug this into a monitor. I can plug this into a TV. I can plug this into XR glasses. Snapdragon 600 series chip, mid-ranger chip, and mid-ranger old chip from like Android 8 days. And I have video output because this is a business grade communicator device. And they literally would put into like some of the marketing materials. Maybe you're a hotshot business guy on the go and you need to run a PowerPoint presentation and all you have is your phone. So you download the PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint can do a second screen out while you control the presentation on your phone. BlackBerry Key 2 could do it. There's nothing preventing the lowest of CPUs from having this feature in video output. It is the manufacturer saying it's good enough if you've got a ridiculously powerful phone and you only have USB 2, so you don't have support for displays. That's it. That's the gig. And I think India would be the absolute best place to run this as like a test case. Like if Samsung is just getting hammered around the world right now, and they could walk in and say, here's the new Galaxy A series, and you can plug your phone into your TV. And now you have a full computer. I think they did it with the Galaxy A90. Was that the last one that had some kind of DeX support? They could do that tomorrow and probably nudge up their sales. I bet you would see a tangible increase in mid-range, in mid-price phone sales. It wouldn't take a ridiculous amount of marketing to recoup the tiny additional cost of putting USB 3 in a Galaxy A series instead of USB 2. Oh, but I think, you know, if you really want to do this, you should just buy a laptop. Gabaletta got there. He's like, yeah, it has display output. Yes, the tank had display output. That's why I was excited about it. Simon says, Hypno, nonsense, Bagnell. You love the flashing cop lights. I have to be even careful. Like, I got complaints on my very first tank video because I just showed it full screen, and someone was like, hey, you got to be careful because, like, a strobe warning, like, I could have given someone a seizure. Like, you know what? That's fair. I did not consider that. That's on me. So the Morlock is saying, I'm with you, Juan. One device to rule them all makes perfect sense for a single device to do everything you need, from work to fun to everything. I'm actually surprised that only Samsung and Motorola that I knew prior had workable solutions. You have to add Huawei and Honor The Honor Magic Desktop is very good. It's not as good as Dex or as it's not as good as Ready For. I think Ready For is still the best, or whatever they're calling it, as screen share, screen select, or something like that. Um, oh, but the Honor Magic Desktop is better than LG Screen Plus, if you remember LG Screen Plus. And then the gaming phones, like a Red Magic, does have this sort of alternate view. It's focused on gaming, but it still presents in a different way when you plug that phone into another monitor or into another display or TV. And I think ROG also does something similar. They have, it's not a full-fledged Windows-style desktop operating system, but it is an alternate view that makes better use of the display aspect ratio and screen real estate. Oh yeah, a Nod 032. It's USB 2 is the exact reason that I'm not going to try the Nothing Phone 3. What is the point of having another $800 phone with a top tier processor and pretty good cameras? We have so many examples of these. And it just makes me so sad that no company has trusted the marketing to tell people, hey, there's this feature that could totally save your butt. Like Samsung kind of tepidly shows and talks about things like Dex. There's new Dex that's a little bit more tablety and fine. But like, if you're a company like Oppo, you want to sell tablets, sure, but you don't have the same vested interest in selling laptops. And you could totally make that. Hey, here's this foldable phone, and then you plug it into a TV, and it's a whole computer. Boom. Oh yeah, murder. Just get a laptop. It's exactly the same crew of people that say, just get a dongle for the lack of a 3.5 millimeter, but in a much larger scale. Absolutely. Gabaletta, you know what's even a bigger crime? Blah, blah, blah. You know what even a budget? A bigger, oh, I had that right. Sorry, Gabaletta. You know what's even a bigger crime? Samsung not making Dex native on any of their Z Fold devices. You mean you're selling a folding tablet and I can't have it uh, on a non-folding, but a non-folding tablet gets it. I really think it could be, especially with new Dex being a little more tablety, that should be the inner experience. You open up the screen and that's what you should see. But of course, I'm not a genius at Samsung whose sales have been tanking and whose foundry is in the pooper right now. And their entire business seems to be at the very beginnings of their death spiral. But, you know, why listen to me? Speaking of companies in death spirals, man, I did not mean to spend this much time on the India story. That I wanted to make that a big piece of this week's show, but I did kind of get a little aggro there. I'm very disappointed. Intel CEO, we are not in the top 10 of leading chip companies. New CEO Lip Bhutan told employees this week that he doesn't consider Intel among the leading chip companies, a bracing message as the chip maker began expansive layoffs in the face of severe technical and financial challenges. Quote, 20, 30 years ago, we are really the leader. Now I think the world has changed. We are not in the top 10 semiconductor companies. We have to be humble, Tan said, exhorting staff to listen to customers and respond to their needs. Asked about Tan's remarks on Intel's position in the chip industry, a spokesperson said he was referring to market value, not technological leadership, but the subject of valuation never came up in Tan's 20-minute conversation. I feel Intel probably messed up. I think I still don't know how to pronounce his last name. If it's Gelsinger or Gelsinger, I think it's Gelsinger. Sorry, I'm real good at doing the semiconductor news. So Intel's previous CEO put them on a path to really focus on advanced nodes, future packaging, new die shrinks. You know, trying to make Intel not only competitive again, but maybe even squeak ahead of some of TSMC's most aggressive new technological platforms. Samsung is not in this conversation at all right now. But TSMC is picking up so much business, these other foundries are having a hard time keeping up, and TSMC can then roll that business into future fabrication technology. So it keeps them ahead of the curve. So I really feel Gelsinger's plan was probably the right play to try and save Intel. Not a foregone conclusion. It might have totally failed. But just as he was starting to get his products out the door, and just as he was starting to realize the investment that he had put into Intel, really focused on this like aggressive tech strategy, that's when Intel's board kicked him out. And this new CEO, man, you're coming in and you're telling me you got to do layoffs. We don't have customers, and I don't know, we're not really competitive anymore, and we have to be humble, and I take full responsibility for all of you losing your jobs. It's the heavy burden that the CEO needs to bear, and I'm humble in cutting all of your jobs. Whether or not you liked Gelsinger at Intel or didn't, I feel like his strategy was, we might run this ship into the ground, but we're going to try to put out tech that really puts TSMC on their heels. And just as we were starting to see like Intel processors finally get competitive against AMD, that's when they kicked him out. Look at all of the innovation that's happened in Intel space. The second gen Core Ultras, whatever we're calling these stupid products now, like they've got a built-in an integrated GPU that's finally hitting hard, that's finally going toe-to-toe with AMD stuff. They have a processor die packaging that looks so much like an ARM PC. You know, how all the little cores in the GPU and all the parts fit together. Sometimes it's integrated RAM, but that helps with performance. Apple could demonstrate that. Like, this is finally starting to look competitive against ARM chips and AMD, and that's the guy they kicked out. Anything you do today at Intel is really is the roadmap from someone from 3 or 4 years ago. So Gelsinger had to deal with Intel's tragic roadmap and keep the ship afloat during the last run of their terrible products. And he put in the investment to start improving their products. And now this CEO is like, yeah, we're probably not even in the top 10. Oh, I mean by like market share price. That's what I meant. It's just so dumb. From Ron Guido. I'm humble. Now pay me $50 million. And when the company folds, I also get a golden parachute. All right. Here's another gloomy story. I'm not actually that cranky about this one because I kind of gave up on HMD. But HMD is exiting the US market. No more Nokia phones in the United States. Some stock remains for the HMD global phone. So it seems like HMD might be pulling out of the US entirely, but they're definitely killing the Nokia name here in the United States. And it seems, again, depending on what rumor or what insight you check out, there are people who are like really following the Nokia name. It seems like 2026 might be the end of the Nokia name in general, and that moving forward into 2027, their licensing agreement is going to be completely ended, and all new phones from HMD will just be HMD devices. I gave up after the Nokia 9. That left such a bad taste in my mouth that I didn't even feel it was appropriate to cover their other products. I understand there's the nostalgia. Hey, I want like a little Nokia candy bar phone or a flip phone. There's the low cost solutions. But even as I started playing with other low cost devices, man, it is tough putting an HMD up against an Infinix or a Techno. We have a couple players in the space now who are doing low cost in a really exciting way. Every time I pick up an Infinix, it is a surprisingly well polished and powerful experience. And I know that that phone's going to retail for like MSRP $200, but you could probably get one for free if you just said something nice to the person behind the cash register. And those phones are brutal. The other one that really changed up my opinion on what's happening internationally is this phone, the Lava. So this is the Agni 3 Lava. That it's an Indian phone, and it sells for the equivalent. The 256 gig of storage model that I have sells for the equivalent of like $250 US. Has a Dimensity 7000 series processor, has a lot of RAM. I think it's 12 gigs of RAM, and it has the rear display. This is a $250 phone that has a good mid-range processor, has 256 gig of storage, has a very good main camera and two mediocre cameras, but when you take photos, you have a ticker display on the back of the phone. It's bigger than my thumb. 250 bucks. Are we expecting it's going to get 10 years of software support? No, not at all. But this is a monster piece of hardware. So yeah, we make that compromise in price. If I look at like what HMD sells for around $200, I don't think they're that competitive. I really don't. I think there's this reputation for, oh, I got a good phone. I got a Nokia and it was like $100, a Nokia. And you're like, that's all just brand nostalgia. It's not, I don't really think you're getting a better device. Now, some of them, like the Skyline, I think was really interesting, bringing repairability into the conversation, but at scale, I'm hoping that other companies are able to approach that more directly as regulations force companies and manufacturers to say, you need a replaceable battery. You need a serviceable component in that phone. Skyline was ahead of the curve. I think they deserve some credit there, but I just really haven't felt like HMD has earned much consideration for covering their products, covering their services. This kind of goes hand in hand with that. It's not enough to just come out and release a cool phone and then say, well, it's a Nokia. You should buy it. Like, you have to tell people that these devices exist. You have to market, you have to advertise. I won't be too surprised if Oppo decides that it's too much hassle to send OnePlus to the United States next year. It'll make me really sad, but there's pretty limited marketing, pretty limited advertising. It'll suck for us, but also you're not going to get consumers to buy more devices if you're just kind of trying to play this word of mouth game. You need to actually impress upon people, we exist in this market, we make cool products, and you should check them out. And if you can't do the bare minimum effort in broaching that here, then it's probably better for everybody if you just leave. And it's just a bummer. From Ross Sathi, I applaud their effort for trying to push the Nokia brand forward. Once a Nokia user, always a Nokia user, until I got the Nokia 9, and then the way they burned me on the Nokia 9, I walked away. Because it wasn't Nokia, that was HMD. And it felt like, oh, you couldn't actually fulfill your promise to me. And so you kind of made this phone even crappier. Oh, well, I guess I'm done. Oh, JGJ, yeah, Nokia HMD was the premier Android One experience, but even Google kind of gave up making that a part of the discussion. Like, Google really doesn't seem that interested in trying to move Android forward as much as now they're getting a little popularity and a little attention, so they're trying to move the Pixel forward, kind of at the expense of Android as a platform. And that's why I feel like, hey, if we cut Chrome OS away from Google, that's not terrible. Maybe a separate Chrome company can do things that Google was reluctant to do. That could actually be kind of nice. I think a company could fork and move and say, what if your phone just had a full-fledged desktop-grade web browser? Why are we playing this game with like a mobile browser version of Chrome? Like, just change up what Chrome. If Chrome OS can run on stupid low power ARM chips, then you could do a UI that simplifies the app drawer, kind of like Windows 8. The start menu for Windows 8 was supposed to be kind of like the phone UI for Windows Phone, especially for like Windows Phone 7. They were supposed to be analogous. They were supposed to sort of relate to each other. Live tiles. What you saw in your start bar was supposed to be kind of your phone's home screen, and then you could open up apps. So you could do that with Chrome OS. Take it out of Google's hands. Give me a Chrome phone. Let's try. You'd already have a lot of support for things like APKs. It wouldn't take a ton of effort for an app developer to just move their app over to a Chrome phone. Speaking of, the reason why I'm bringing that up, this is proper confirmation written up by Mikhail over at GSM Arena. Google confirms plans to merge Chrome OS into Android. Excuse me. A Google executive officially confirmed the rumors that Android and Chrome OS are merging into a single operating system. Samir Samat, who is the president of Android ecosystem at Google, acknowledged that Android and Chrome OS will be combined into a single platform. Quote, we're going to be combining Chrome OS and Android into a single platform. I'm very interested in how people are using their laptops these days and what they're getting done. This to me is sort of the preemptive salting the earth. So then Google can say, oh, but you see, Chrome and Android are the same thing. You can't make us sell Chrome because you said we had to sell Chrome, but Chrome is really Android now, you see, so we can't sell it. Because then you'd be making us sell Android, and that just wouldn't be fair. And this is why our legal system has such a hard time reining in these massive corporations, is because the whole investigative anti-competitive business practice hit that Google took is going to spend another couple years in litigation, in appeals, and moving through our judicial system. And in the meantime, they can do something really quickly like, oh, but what it really is it's really the same thing now. So there's like a browser called Chrome, and we could kind of find a way to maybe peel off like a little piece of WebKit. Something similar to that, and just like send that out there. And that's what now we don't have. But the operating system and Chrome and all that other stuff, well, that's just Android now. It's all Android. We discontinued Chrome. You see how it's really not good faith? You see how it's very disingenuous? When Google's like, no, this is going to be good for everybody. You always could have brought these features to Android. Android always could have done this. But you held out and you forced this artificial separation between phones and tablets and laptops. It always could have been like this. The compute power of your phone always could have been utilized for more. Your tablet always could have been competitive against a laptop. We see when we support these companies' business decisions and oh, what, you want Google to make less money? You just want less money, or you like a communist? And look at how many things you could have bought that could have done more or lasted longer. It keep defending the corporations, I guess. Let me get a drink of coffee here. I got wiggy on that one too. Oh, for sure. Hold on, where'd it go? Georgie, sadly, you are right. Nokia is no more, and we all blame Stephen Elop. Correct. Man, that was such an ugly. Like, I mean, what do you even call it? It's not like industrial espionage, but it was like, you know, the calls coming from inside the house. Some kind of like hostile takeover, but with CEOs. Morlock, Windows Metro was not horrible. Windows Metro was awesome on phones and it was good on tablets. It was just not super great for mouse and keyboard. It was a visual metaphor that made so much sense when you were controlling with your finger. And I'll still, like, I'll ride or die. Windows 8 got so much hate that it really didn't deserve. All these people are like, oh, it's just unfamiliar and it lacks conveyance. And like, that operating system did so much to move people into a mentality of touch interfaces. There are still things cribbed from Metro that we're seeing show up on Android and iOS today. It deserves to be talked about like WebOS from Palm, except it was kind of lame on a desktop. I'll die on that hill. Windows 8 deserved so much more recognition. The Metro interface deserved so much more recognition for mobile than it ever got. Murder, I feel Sony is next to leave the phone space. Just now reading a new article on how they are not even selling the phone in stores. In Finland, Reddit is filled with hate for the brand on every thread. Well, it's funny that you bring that up, Murder, because our next story, also from GSM Arena, you guys are way ahead of me on the curve here. Like, I feel really, like, we have some really hard-hitting news here. Here's an official update on the Sony Xperia 1 Mark 7 problems. Yeah, you beat me to the punch there, guys. This is written up by Vlad. A few days ago, Sony stopped selling the Xperia 1 Mark 7 in Japan while it investigates some pretty serious issues. There have been reports of units randomly rebooting, randomly shutting down, and even refusing to turn on. And so I'll have the official link to Sony's article here. Oh, I hate it when they just reject all the cookies. Dear valued Sony customers, thank you for your continued support and interest in Xperia products. As published on the Japanese Xperia support website, Sony has identified potential power issues with the Xperia 1.7 smartphone, unexpected power offs, restarts, and the inability to power on. Sony is currently investigating the cause of these issues and is working out a solution for our affected customers. On the European market, we're in the process of identifying the extent of the affected stock, as this issue may only affect a select batch of Xperia 1 Mark 7 devices. And then they go through some explanations on things you can try and revive your phone, how to do like a long power button press to get the phone to power cycle, kind of like turning it off and on again, and just really disappointing. Sony already felt like they were in a cost-cutting situation from the Xperia 1 Mark 5 to the Mark 6. They were still charging the utmost premium price, but they were watering down some of the experience that made an Xperia unique. And it feels like that was the path they were still on from the 6 to the 7. And I think it's funny, and this is one where even in my circles of tech friends, people saying things like, oh, I didn't know the 7 had even come out. People who were like fans of previous, like the Xperia 1 Mark 3. I still have my 1 Mark 4. Things like that. Just very, very disappointing to see where they've come. This is why I kind of joke, but not really, where I feel like Samsung is in the beginnings of their death spiral. You can't cost cut your way into a premium phone experience to increase profits. It's just not sustainable. That's not how this works over time. I'm frustrated, and I feel it's fair to bring up, like when I hold up a Vivo or I hold up a Xiaomi, that from last year to this year, we got some cool new features, but we also lost other cool features. The entire industry right now is afraid of pricing out a device on what it would really cost to make a profitable version of that, moving all technology forward. They're holding to an arbitrary price cap, which is still higher. The prices are still going up, but they're holding to that arbitrary price cap and saying, well, no one would buy this phone if it were $1,600. And the marketing might be right. The sales data, the demographics, they might have that right. But that means I'm going to hold up a phone from 2025 And it's not a foregone conclusion that it will be better than a phone from 2024. I can hold up a Xiaomi 14 Ultra and a Xiaomi 15 Ultra, and the 14 Ultra might be a better fit for your needs. And you could probably get one on sale. I can hold up a Vivo X100 Pro and an X200 Pro, and the X100 Pro might be better for what you want to do. Everybody's going through this. But to some of the points here in the chat, and especially, you know, you guys just beating me to the punch on yeah, especially murder, like really beating me to the punch here. This is where we start to see a company has to question, is it worth it for us to run a phone division? The Xperia phone division regularly seems to be profitable, but a very, very small part of Sony's portfolio. And they've been kind of moved around. Now I think they've had their best success where they seem to be directly under the Sony Alpha division. This is a camera division, and this is a camera-focused phone, and the features that Sony brings directly relate to their Sony cameras. I think that's a good strategy. But if this kind of a recall costs them a lot of money, let's say it's not just, you know, here's one affected batch of phones, it's like a couple hundred phones, and now we have to do this recall. If this problem in manufacturing is bigger than that, I don't see Sony executives saying, yeah, let's really eat these losses and let's really make sure we've got, you know, another phone out next year and the year after that, and let's keep putting money into this division if we're getting such small returns. So I agree, and with a lot of people here, the sort of spirit of what made the Xperia 1 so unique isn't gone, but it has been diluted just a little bit. And if they're not making more money with this strategy, it calls into question, why do you keep the phone around? And I think it is likely coming. Maybe not in 2026. Maybe we've got a roadmap. We've got agreements on processors and camera sensors and manufacturing and product lines. But I think it's coming pretty soon. I think we need to kind of start saying our goodbyes to the Xperia, not only just in philosophy, like the Xperia 5 is kind of the last true Xperia 1, but also in practicality, where Sony is likely looking at whether or not they should pull the plug on this product line. And that makes me crazy. Like, you know, where I was just recently holding up a phone like this BlackBerry. We lose good competitive options. We lose the niche players at the periphery of the smartphone mainstream. We lose things that are really special. This phone that I have never put in a case, that I used as like a primary communications device. This is the best communicator phone that has ever been released, in my opinion. This thing was an absolute champ. This thing is still ridiculously secure in terms of like kernel security. I don't believe any bounty has ever been retrieved for cracking open the software on a BlackBerry. It was a plot point in the terrible Netflix show Fubar Season 2 that they couldn't crack into an old BlackBerry. I turned to my wife and said, actually, yeah, that's kind of legit. Software security on a BlackBerry is sort of ridiculous. We lose that. We don't get it back. Samsung Knox is not the same as the custom ROM Android version of a BlackBerry. So yeah, you guys totally called me a murderer, and a few others in this chat also saying like, yeah, you knew where I was going before I even, you know, sort of blazed that trail. Yeah, Brian Glaze, if you're cutting costs, that's a sign that you're on the decline. Gabaletta, you can pry the Xiaomi 14 Ultra from my cold, dead fingers. I'm not giving up the variable aperture. Brian Glaze also saying Sony pulling the plug has been my biggest worry. And Simon Says Hypno saying Sony really should have tied the Xperia 1s to the PlayStation. And I'm just kind of, you're not wrong. In fact, I think you're more right than Sony is, because I feel like there was a huge opportunity to have Sony with a phone use the phone as a way to highlight sort of connected play, right? Sony's done stuff like that in the past. I don't think they've ever had the best version of that. And I can point to things like Steam and Steam Link and, like, Sony, make it more like that. It'll work better. Vazico saying the Xperia Play for the win. But I feel like there was an idea. There was a very brief moment where I thought Sony was gonna maybe do phone per division. I have no evidence on this. I'm only just kind of mentioning things. I used to have a lot of conversations with Sony PR in the United States, and there was just like a moment of an idea that, like, you would have Sony Xperia 1, and that was the phone that would be under the Alpha division. But what about a Sony something else phone that would have been under the Bravia and entertainment division? A Sony Walkman phone. I've got my Sony WH-1000 XM6, the best active noise canceling premium travel headphone on the market today. And what if there was a media and entertainment phone with the built-in headphone jack and the memory card support that was designed to go with this, or my Sony Bravia neckband speakers? Someone who's interested in that. And then, to your point, a PlayStation phone. What if we had a 3-part Sony smartphone strategy? A photography content creation device, a Walkman multimedia, media and entertainment device, and then like a hardcore for the gamers, let's kick the crap out of an ROG kind of a device. And I feel like Sony was uniquely one of the only companies on the planet who really could have brought those expertise to mobile in a meaningful way. But again, they didn't ask me. So yeah, Morlock. And yeah, I'm not saying anything against it. Sony PlayStation Remote Play works well on your phone, even non-Sony phones. Maybe they could have added some hardware for better remote play performance. And again, it's how you get that feature integrated into the ecosystem of your products. And I don't know that there's a great answer to that. But like what an Xperia did in gaming rivaled every other gaming phone on the market in terms of feature set. In Xperia 1, that gaming panel that gave you granular data on charge discharge. They were the first one on premium phones to really highlight charge separation. Just all of the, like, frame rate control and graphics controls and resolution controls. That gaming panel was a legitimate PC grade gaming panel. And now every other smartphone manufacturer has tried to copy that in some way. A PlayStation phone could have followed that philosophy and taken that idea even further, right? Now let's get into what your network connection looks like in Sony Remote Play, and we can do this, and that ties you into your PlayStation account where all your friends are and your achievements, and like just made that front of mind. And that experience could have been awesome. It really would have helped, because I think we're doing that now. When we talk about mobile gaming, we talk about the games you install and play on your phone, and we're also talking about the games you can stream from other services or from other devices. Gaming has become a lot more fluid. We don't have to just sit in one chair, look at one monitor, play game right here. Most of my gameplay on RoboCop Rogue City was on my Steam Deck, but not rastered from the Steam Deck. The game was being produced from my workstation, and I was just playing it on my Steam Deck. We accept this now much more than like the PlayStation 4 era. The PlayStation 4 era came out and these tools started really becoming more popular. They were kind of garbage. Now they're amazing. So we're kind of getting into the last 20 minutes here, and I did want to just highlight this. So I put out a question at the beginning of this podcast if we wanted to spend any time sort of revisiting Samsung Unpacked. I think y'all know I'm probably going to be somewhat negative on Unpacked this year. I just didn't feel like there was a lot that really got me lit up about what they might do. But in the interim, I did want to showcase this for all of the insane, incredible, my mind has been so blown hype surrounding the Galaxy Z Fold 7. Our pals at Vivo also announced the X Fold. So this is the X Fold 5. And I'm actually on the Vivo site where they're showing, I think this is Indian prices. With 16 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, it's roughly 200, I mean, again, accounting for exchange rates, not price to price in India. It's going to be roughly $200 cheaper than a Galaxy Z Fold 7. It's going to have a 6,000 milliamp hour battery. It's going to have 80-watt fast charging, and it's only 0.1 millimeters thicker. Or no, 0.1 centimeters, excuse me. 0.1 centimeters thicker than the Z Fold 7. So you've got more than a 30% increase in battery size. I'm trying to find, I had, where's the, so yes, I had this wrong. It's 0.1 millimeters thicker, unfolded. That's where I was getting messed up. So the Galaxy Z Fold 7 is 4.2 millimeters thick, not counting the camera sensor. The X Fold 5 is 4.3 millimeters thick, not counting the massive camera sensor. But for 0.1 millimeters in depth, you've got more than 30% more battery, and the charging is 3 times faster. The Z Fold 7 is going to top out at like 30-watt charging. I think it's actually listed, what is it, QC2? Qualcomm's Quick Charge 2? So I think that might be 25-watt, maybe 30-watt charging. The X Fold can charge wirelessly at 40 watts. I'm just like, someone was recently on the Discord was sharing a thread from Reddit, like, oh, all you people in like Chinese phones, they're like way overhyped. They're so overhyped. Samsung is obviously like the bestest manufacturer because I own a Samsung and I only choose the bestest because pure meritocracy and not because I'm just a Samsung Knight fanboy. And I got to the end of Unpacked, and the Z Fold 7 is getting more expensive because it's thinner. It's getting a smaller battery because it's thinner, and Samsung doesn't want to license a more impressive battery technology. So they want you to pay more for an older version of a battery where they have to cut capacity to make the device as thin as it is. And how can we call Samsung a market leader if they're not going to lead in the market? Oh, it's got a 200 megapixel camera sensor now. Cool. On your $2,000 folding mini tablet phone, you finally put in a camera sensor similar to the sensor that you put into the Galaxy S25 Ultra. I'm so happy. But guess what? That sensor has fallen behind Vivo and Xiaomi and Oppo. So the sensor on the S25 Ultra is not bleeding edge. It's good. It's a good sensor. No one's going to say you can't get good pictures with good HDR pictures out of the S25 Ultra. But you're not buying the best. So cool. But I really feel like so many people, especially productivity minded people, the people who are looking at this as a way to like get more done on the go, would want to hear, you know what, here at Samsung, we not only made this device super thin, but we've invested in the tip of the spear, razor's edge, bleeding edge, the newest battery technologies to bring you the longest experience that you can run out in the field. We gave you this incredibly powerful processor in this phone, and to make sure you can use it, to utilize it to its fullest extent, we're now using the most cutting edge silicon carbon battery tech, slimmest profile. This is going to change the game. We're giving you fast charging because we're Samsung, and we want you to get on with your workday. When you're an on-the-go individual, you plug in for 10 minutes and bam, you've got like a full day's charge ready to go. And who's doing that? Not Samsung. Vivo. Vivo do that. Samsung no do that. Samsung is, well, it's a compromise. What, it's thin. You wanted more battery? You can't do more battery in thin. I had like, during Samsung Unpacked, they had this poor YouTuber out there to explain to us, well, it really matters, guys. It matters that the panels are thinner because then when you fold it in half, you see, it's twice as thick. This is the 7th generation foldable from Samsung. And they think you're so stupid that they still need to explain to you that when you fold it in half, it's the 2 panels, so it gets twice as thick, guys. And I hope that YouTuber got paid because it made him look so dumb that he had to explain this at a keynote. And who watches keynotes? But people who are interested in the technology a company is announcing. Average consumers don't watch Samsung Unpacked. But for how little tablet-style folding devices have really impacted this market, they're 7 generations in, and they're still talking to you like this is a magical experience that no one has ever seen before, and they need to explain it to you because you're too dumb to get it. If you got it, maybe you would buy it. Dumb, come on, give Samsung $2,000 for a mini tablet that no longer has stylus support. You know what I really love on all of these modern tablets right now? So every single one of them has some kind of awesome active pen. I love doodling. I love having fine point mouse-like control. It's fun for games, especially if you like to play shoot 'em ups. You have this tiny stick that you can control your little ship and dodge all the bullets. It's so much easier than using your fat finger because I have fat hobbit hands. Like, that's something Samsung brought to the market. I just had to retire my Galaxy Note 4. Samsung used to do the bold. Think of how much mocking they got with the original Note. Like, who would ever want a phone that big? And then it turned out everybody wanted a phone that big. Turns out even Apple got over this, your thumb goes from here to here and from here to here. And they came out with a bigger iPhone, right? Who did that? Samsung literally dragged the smartphone market into the phablet era. And here, they've got a mini folding tablet, and they're trying to tell us it's for productivity, and they're trying to tell us it's for work. And then they keep showing us that it can't do things. It's like the jokes, someone mentioned in my Discord, and I had to share it on Threads. Like, in the commercial of the woman who owns the restaurant, she's saying, oh, I use my Galaxy Z Fold to manage my whole business. And then the next shot is her putting the Z Fold down to pick up a notebook, a paper, and a pen to write notes on because the Z Fold doesn't have an active pen anymore, you see. So if you want to do a handwritten note, you need paper and pen again. The marketing geniuses at Samsung couldn't even switch that to show her doing dictation. I don't need a stylus to write down notes anymore because I prop up my Z Fold 7 in tent mode and I tell my Samsung AI a list of notes, and then the AI, adds things to my calendar or comes up with a shopping list for my restaurant. They couldn't even spoon feed us the AI solution. She picked up a piece of paper and an ink pen because a $2,000 mini folding tablet from Samsung no longer has stylus support. So if I'm not going to have proper stylus support in a mini folding tablet, I'm going to sacrifice 0.1 millimeters of thickness, and I'm going to go get a Vivo. I'm going to go get a Vivo with a battery that will last me more than 30% longer and will charge almost 3 times faster. I don't understand how anyone else can come to a more reasonable solution than like this Vivo Galaxy Fold, except to say, I really like DeX. So I'm stuck in a position where I have to pay an incredible premium. I have to pay this ridiculous price because I want to keep using DeX. I think that's it. I think that's all they've got. Oh, I'm sorry. I know I'm going to have some comments in here. Aditya Nil. Hey, everybody. So everyone say hey to Aditya. He just jumped in. Simon says, Hypno, battery size comparisons, por favor. Oh, and the Honor V5 too. I'm so out of the loop on folding mini tablets. I really love the OnePlus Open. I have to admit, I haven't cracked it open. I might have sold it. I don't run any folding mini tablets right now. I feel like for a lot of folks, the 2-device strategy ends up being like a good proper standalone tablet, and a good premium tier phone is less expensive than a folding phone. I kind of live that combo instead. Marilyn is saying I'm not getting the Z Fold 7, no pen support, so I'm keeping my Z Fold 6. I think it's just better. I think there are people who probably should have done the same. Like, instead of getting an S25 Ultra, should have stuck with an S24 Ultra, and you could have saved a little money on it. Like, what does the S25 Ultra really bring that changes this discussion in a meaningful way when the phone from 2024 might be better for you than the phone from 2025? Your Xiaomi 14 Ultra might be better for you than your 15 Ultra. Your Vivo X100 Pro might be better than your X200 Pro. The Galaxy S24 might be better than the S25. And it'll be cheaper. Gabaletta saying it is 25-watt charging. So I saw QC2 and I'm like, man, that is so cheap. JGJ saying I don't love Samsung's UI design paradigm. Morlock, speaking of fast charging and battery capacity, I'm loving my OnePlus 13. Battery technology is going to get even more exciting in the next few years. I completely agree. It's a shame that Samsung is working the design of thin before they have the tech to support thin. John Gao, a bit disappointed to see that Vivo has made all the Apple devices integration capabilities a Chinese version exclusive for the X Fold 5. I really have to believe that they're only able to do that in China. Were they doing that internationally, I bet you they're utilizing protocols and technologies that would get them destroyed in court. But I'm willing to say that there is a political aspect to this where Apple doesn't want to fight in China. And so it's going to happen in China. But I do not believe that they have the full access to technologies, protocols, and communication to extend. What John is mentioning is like you can pair an Apple Watch with a Vivo, but only if it's running a Chinese ROM. Cool. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you could. Um, I I genuinely believe Apple is waiting with a giant red nope button that unleashes an army of lawyers if that feature ever leaves China. That's my guess. It really is like they might be doing something kind of hinky, but Apple doesn't want to fight them in China. From Gabaletta, the periscope on the Pura 80 Ultra is bigger than the main sensor on the S25 Ultra. And we've been playing that game for a bit. Like, again, it makes for a ridiculous bulge out the back of your phone. Like, the periscope on the Vivo X200 Pro is not as big as the Pura 80. It's pretty darn big though. The periscope is the same size as the main camera sensor on the OnePlus 13. Yeah, on the Oppo Find 8 Pro. This big chunky boy, like the camera sensor module on the back of the Vivo X200 Pro is thicker than the panel size on my Surface Duo. From Georgie, Samsung are not innovative for at least 4 years now, and the Chinese manufacturers are really ahead now. But just because all of this Chinese tech is bad, we all suffer. I I think it's hilarious. I understand liking products or being familiar with like the user interface, but I just don't get this like this last dying gasp of Samsung knighthood. Oh, but I like this one. I don't want to charge my battery too fast. I like my battery taking longer to charge so it runs hotter for longer and will probably burn out sooner because it's a smaller capacity. And then when Samsung eventually does figure out some of this tech, then they'll act like, "Oh, but you need to have this fast charging. You need to have 60-watt charging." Yeah, but I had 120-watt charging on my iQOO. I had 90-watt charging on my Xiaomi. Where have you been? What are you doing? Like Samsung and Google owners are kind of stuck in this reality distortion field in North America, in the United States. They're stuck in the same reality bubble as iPhone owners now. I got my wife, I let her use the OnePlus Watch 3. It charged so fast and lasted for so long, she's seriously considering not getting another Pixel and her next phone being a OnePlus. This user experience where you don't have to manage the device as much matters a lot. I'm not babysitting my phone's power. I only plug it in when I need to because I know I'll only need to plug it in for 5 minutes. For her use, a OnePlus will probably double her overall longevity in terms of like days. Like she gets kind of like a day and a half on her Pixel 8. She could probably push that. Get close to 3 days, but then do you care about how you top it off? No, because it charges in minutes. Does she need to have chargers all over the house? No, because it charges in minutes. Does she need to buy wireless charging pads that constantly trickle charge her phone and keep her phone running hot? No, because it charges in minutes. And it took a smartwatch, but the Google Watch isn't doing it for her like the OnePlus Watch. Well, now maybe a Google phone isn't the right fit for her either. It's wild. This stuff matters so much more than it got like 200 more points. It got more points in Geekbench. It got more Geekbench points. You know who doesn't care about that at all? Everyone. Even techies say they don't care about that. From Hassam, I loved TK's coverage of Unpacked because TK is a real one. TK is a good dude. He was one of the few that I was really checking in on, and for him, it was a lot of social stuff. Like he got to meet up with a bunch of old friends of ours. That just made me happy because TK is a good guy. If you want to see stuff from Unpacked and someone being a little nicer to Samsung, TK is the coverage that I would follow. From Vasicos. Yeah, I wouldn't keep holding your breath on that one. I'm still waiting for Samsung to give what they showed in CES 2013 commercial, a 16 by 9 tablet that folds, not a tall phone that opens into a square screen. I may I may as well see a 21 by 9 movie in the outer display. I don't think it's coming, but actually, to get closer to that, I don't think it's 16 by 9. What is the Lenovo? Is that 3 by 2? I mean, it's not going to get you close. It's still going to be a weird letterboxed presentation, but unfortunately, I feel like the tablet side of this or the laptop side of this is Lenovo's game. Samsung has all of this investment in folding screen technologies, and Lenovo is completely eating them for lunch on like laptop tech for stuff like that. Gabaletta. They're saying they had to remove the digitizer to make the device thinner. They had to keep the battery the same for 4 years because from the Z2 to the Z3, it shrunk by 100 milliamp hour. They just had, there's no way they couldn't have done anything else. Samsung, they just couldn't. And then Vivo's like, no, we could. From a DTNL, I can't quite put my finger on it, call it a hunch, an intuition, but I think Juan isn't impressed by the Galaxy Unpacked event. From Rhythm 451, all while Samsung doesn't even know or care who they are. I'm bringing this up now because I want us to be able to look back in a couple years, and I like ticking people off but being right. I feel it's more important to be right than to just have people like me on YouTube. Um, I think from 2023, I believe 2023 was the first inkling of Samsung being on a path that could be the death spiral. And I think 2025 is showing us this is a company kind of bankrupt of idea. There's no drive, there's no vision. This is not a Samsung who's trying to push limits or push boundaries. They're not investing in their customers. They're trying to find ways of appeasing their shareholders. They're trying to cut costs into more profits. They're not trying to put their absolute best technologies out there in an exciting way because they've watched Apple slow play every iPhone. And they think, if Apple can do it, why can't we? Why can't we make more money on an ecosystem by giving our customers less? And that works for Apple because Apple is a singular point. Apple has no competition. There is no other place you can buy an iPhone except from Apple. But that doesn't work. It doesn't work when the Z Fold feels like such a whiff and it's a $2,000 product. And then I can look at a Vivo that costs between $200 and $250 less, depending on what calculation you do for exchange rates. And it's incredibly powerful. It's nearly identically as thin, and it bests the Galaxy on very important capabilities we should care about for a mobile device, not the least of which is raw battery capacity in the same thinness. So I feel like Apple is suffering from this a little bit. Tim Cook is an operations guy, and he makes Apple incredibly profitable, but he's not a vision guy. He's not a big ideas guy. He's literally harmed the company because of his focus on generating profit. He's harmed the company for future revenue by disobeying court rulings on things like app payments. I feel there's some scrutiny deserving there, like an actual investigation into what Tim Cook did to Apple when they said, "Hey, you've got to let app developers, you got to let them charge customers outside of the Apple App Store." And Tim Cook, against the recommendation from guys like Schiller, went and said, "Okay, well, we'll let them charge, but you still have to give us a cut," which totally betrays the spirit of that ruling on app developer payments. And it got Apple in trouble, and potentially one Apple executive could still be charged criminal perjury because of Tim Cook's business decisions. That's what happens when your massive big ideas tech company is run by an operations guy. Samsung is in a similar place. They are not showing us big ideas. They are not showing us innovation. They're looking at Apple and they're upset that why not us? We should be the Apple of Android, and everyone should just be in our ecosystem and blindly following and supporting us. And no matter what we do, we should be able to make more money and give people less so that they have to buy more. And that doesn't work when I can pick up a Vivo. It doesn't work when I can pick up a Xiaomi. It doesn't work when I can pick up an Oppo. It doesn't work. It's so much more exciting not being stuck in Samsung, Google, Apple land. Like, we're seeing real stuff here. We're seeing exciting things here. I wish we still had some of the old kit, like memory card slots and headphone jacks, but battery tech, forget about it. Just miss me with Apple. You could charge your iPhone 30 watts now. Oh my gosh. What are we doing? That's ridiculous. From Enrico Vids. But who even needs a stylus or a tablet when you have a pen and paper notebook? From Murder. Just buy Post-it notes and the laptop. Get a headphone dongle. From Gabaletta, the Oppo Find N5 is just as thin as the Z Fold 7, and it supports pen support on both screens. That's weird. I might want to take notes from the outer display or the inner display. Gabaletta, that's just silly. Who even needs to have features? Who even does things on their phones? From Goat V8. Maybe you missed the part about AI. Maybe you've heard of it. Best thing ever? Sheesh. See, Goat V8, this is the other thing that I'm like actually irked about in Samsung's presentation. They didn't even show the AI replacing the features they removed. I just said, like, instead of the scene where she picks up paper and a pen, she opens her Fold 7 and dictates her shopping list to her phone. Since she can't write on the screen, she uses her amazing Samsung Galaxy AI to make the shopping list, and her Galaxy AI to fill out her calendar. They couldn't even put those pieces together. They think you're so stupid. They couldn't even link the AI to replacing the feature that they lost, and they showed her picking up paper and pen because the tablet doesn't have a stylus anymore. That was their plug for AI, and they whiffed it. That's how bad Samsung and Samsung marketing are at realizing the messaging behind their folding mini tablet, what turns into a double thick phone. But they had a cute little YouTuber on. See, guys, it needs to be thin because when you fold it in half, it's twice as thick, guys. Oh, and the battery life, I guess you'll have to wait for my full review. They had him say that on stage. We know the battery life's gonna be garbage. We know. Oh, but guys, I'm gonna have a full review and I'll tell you that, like the battery life wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be when I turn on the power saver and I use it less. It lasts longer. Oh, it makes me so angry. Gabaletta, plugging in my Xiaomi for 10 minutes gives me the same capacity that it takes my Pixel at least 30. Yup. Georgie, you should give your wife the Vivo X200 Ultra. She will not turn to another brand. Actually, I'm gonna do some network tests because my wife she has a Pixel 8, not an 8 Pro, not an 8A. She has the regular Pixel 8, and I'm thinking if I can get good reception on the X200 FE, I might try and swap her out. Just see. This little FE is a cute little phone. The cameras are better than her Pixel 8. That might be the fit for her. I don't think she's gonna want to go bigger than the 8. So otherwise, I would have tried her on like a OnePlus 13R. Just a great, super powerful, good cameras. I think the cameras on her Pixel 8 probably compete for the kind of processing that she likes. But if I can get good network reception and good coverage here in the burbs, I might try her on a Vivo, because now my daughter's doing stuff and she's trying to take pictures, and my daughter actually cares about like the photos that we send to other family members and stuff. And there are times like, she's playing softball and my wife doesn't have a telephoto camera on the Pixel 8. And so she'll pick up one of my cameras and like zoom in, and you're like, oh wow, I got this great shot of Lex at the plate. And you're like, yeah, because it has a good telephoto camera. That might be our pick. Oh, I'm way behind on the chat. Scoop just came in. One. And I was like, what's up, Scoop? DTNL, Tim isn't a Vision Pro guy. Huh? I'll see myself out. Oh, and my Aunt Kathy's in the chat. We love your laugh and your knowledge so much. So proud of you, JC. You need to do voices in movies. Thanks, Aunt Kathy. Everyone say hey to my Aunt Kathy. Aunt Kathy's good people. From Simon Says Hypno, can she still use the OnePlus watch with the X200 FE? Absolutely. O-Health is not dependent on any phone manufacturer. O-Health can be used on any device. So her O-Health stats, if she signs into an account, her O-Health stats are going to transfer. She can use the OnePlus watch with any phone. She's using the OnePlus watch with a Pixel right now. She has a Pixel 8. So all of that, still good. Good to go. So that's another reason why I kind of didn't want her getting too entrenched in like Samsung. She used to rock some Samsung. She used to have a Galaxy S4 back in the day. But Samsung today would mean, hey, if you liked this feature on your Galaxy watch, you can only buy a Galaxy phone. I didn't want her to get trapped in something like that. And so Google was probably the right solution for its time. But her Pixel Watch 2 is not, she doesn't like that watch as much as she likes the OnePlus watch. Her Pixel Watch 1 disintegrated on her wrist. And her Pixel 8 is a fine phone, but she's turning to me, or she's borrowing my other phones when she wants a better camera. When she wants a better camera than a Pixel, she's picking up a Vivo or a Xiaomi. So if I can see, like, if I can kind of guarantee her she'll have good network coverage, I think the FE might be the gig, just because it's so teeny. We got a little time here. I'm going to try and keep this podcast to 2.5 hours, but I do want to change pace just to wrap us up for something fun for about 10 minutes. Who wants to talk some Superman? Because you know what? You know what's tough is we got this comic book character. All those fat cat executives over at DC, they took this character who really hit its heyday in like post-Depression era America and was like a political force throughout World War II. And you know what they're doing to Superman is they're making him woke. I don't know if we should stand for this, guys. Superman, one of his first villains was fighting corrupt lobbyists that were bribing politicians. That's the Superman that we started with. Superman once burned down a series of slums and then forced the United States government to build safe housing for poor people and for homeless people. Superman, the most famous panel of Superman is him talking about how Americans come in all colors and creeds. But now in this movie, Superman's woke. I don't think we should stand for this. Superman used to fight Nazis in the Klan. But now he's woke because he saves a squirrel. So here's my thing. I'm going to spoil, I am going to publish publicly my little write-up on Superman. But I'm going to spoil the Patreon article that I've got up right now. James Gunn brings a lot of deep cuts. He loves digging into the weird and the wacky parts of comics. And I think he's earned a reputation for doing this pretty well. It's not always foolproof. It's not always a total win. But from the Guardians films to his Suicide Squad film, I think we can credit James Gunn with a passion for comics minutia and obscurity. He'll take these tiny little one-off moments and these forgettable characters, and he'll at least make you care about a plot involving these kinds of characters, right? I feel Snyder completely missed the point of Superman, and he turned Superman into a child's ego revenge fantasy character. Like a child's ego. I don't want to eat my vegetables, and if I had superpowers, no one could ever tell me what to do. And unfortunately, there's a base of comic book fans who got older but never grew up. They're the lost boys of Marvel fans and the lost boys of DC fans. And that's who Snyder appealed to, was a Superman who was an authoritarian, grim, dark, reactionary, dull, not clever character who faced all problems with either bow to my authority or I'm gonna level this city. And I don't think that's Superman. Superman should be corny, and Superman should be a Boy Scout. And this is a Superman in James Gunn's version who is bright, who is clever. He's not a genius, but he's clever, who enjoys the cat and mouse game of being Clark Kent and being Superman and being different people for different situations. He has friends. He was raised by a loving family, though he has a longing for the family he didn't know. He's not Batman. Snyder tried to turn Superman into Batman, that it mattered more that he never knew his parents. His parents were killed. But you grew up with a loving family, dude. Superman should be this incredible story about adoption, not grim, dark, kill my parents, Martha, Martha, my parents. That's Batman. Batman, grimdark. Superman, corny Boy Scout. But I want a Superman who will lose every fight if it means he can protect someone weaker than himself. And to that point, I think James Gunn nails the spirit of a Superman. If you're one of these 40-year-old man babies still living in your mother's basement, I wish Superman should be realistic and should punch that guy. If I were Superman, I would punch that guy. Don't do that to Superman. You have Omni-Man. You have Homelander. You have every other satirical deconstruction of the superhero. You have the Tick. You can go find super guy what flies and has super strength as the authoritarian. Every Superman story should be about the family he grew up with. Even the Elseworlds stories of Superman, like Red Sun, is still Superman growing up in a community, and that community influencing his behavior. So what if Superman grew up in Soviet Russia instead of Kansas in the United States, and it's still about him protecting those weaker, actually believing in the ideology of communism? He's still a Boy Scout, he's just a communist Boy Scout. That's the correct telling of Superman. If you want the best version of Superman, it's a man who shows his strength through restraint, not someone who immediately wigs out and sends logs through a semi-truck because someone said something mean to him at a diner, and he reacted like a little pee-pee baby, and instead of confronting those people who were mean to him, he busted up their truck. That's Snyder's version of a Superman. A Superman is a reactionary, whiny crybaby. And that did Henry Cavill so dirty. Henry Cavill could have given us such a fun Clark Kent and such an honorable, upstanding Superman, but Snyder turned him into this grim, dark, whiny crybaby. And James Gunn turns it back around. James Gunn is getting us closer to the Superman that we saw in the Justice League Unlimited animated series. And if you haven't seen it, you can find it on YouTube. Look up Superman World Made of Cardboard. Superman is fighting this impossible battle, and Darkseid has come to Earth, and they're just gonna destroy the planet and kill everyone on it. And Superman gives the best monologue that explains who Superman is. I live in a world made of cardboard, and I always have to hold back because if I make any mistake, people could get hurt, people could die. But Darkseid, you can take it. So what we have here is a rare opportunity to see how far I can really go. And then Superman punches Darkseid, and a sonic boom comes from that punch, and Darkseid goes like flying up into the sky. And that's who Superman is. Superman is a guy who never unleashes his full power because the tiniest mistake would kill everyone around him. And I feel like we finally have someone who understands that with James Gunn taking over Superman. Superman needs to be a golly gee shucks kind of guy. He's a Kansas Boy Scout. He was raised by Mom, Pa Kent. He's got friends at the Daily Planet. He loves Lois Lane. This is a man who is not tortured. This is a man who does what he does every day because he's shown love and compassion, and he wants to protect people who don't have all the things he has. There's a lot of cornball. There's a lot of silliness. It's definitely kind of a goofy movie. I think there are some issues with pacing. I do agree with some of the complaints that Gunn's entry into the story is whiplash-inducing, and then you don't have a lot of time. The movie does not give you a lot of time. It's introducing the Justice Gang and Green Lantern and Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific, and Lois knows this, but Jimmy knows that, and Lex's plan is multifaceted, and there's political intrigue, and there's a war, and Superman's caught up in social media. I do feel like there are some issues, but ultimately what we have is a version of this character that is correct. Since the Christopher Reeve films, we finally have a Superman that I could take my daughter to the theater. I couldn't take my daughter to the Snyderverse films, or the Snyderverse Superman films. I have a Superman that is an example. I have a Superman that sets the right example. My daughter's 9. She's starting to get that tweener mentality. Everything's so sarcastic and so cynical. And I can point to Superman and say, hey, you know what? You don't have to treat people like that. You don't have to talk to people like that. You're strong. You're smart. You could be like Superman. Couldn't do that with the Snyder films. Hey, you know, someone was mean to you. You know what you should do is when their back is turned, set their locker on fire. That's the message of the Snyderverse, right? You could confront them, you could be honorable, you could have an exchange of ideas, or you could just wait until they aren't looking at you, and then you can smash their truck with logs. Let me take a drink of coffee here. I'm sure I've got a couple comments here. And if anyone's seen it, please weigh in. Maybe I'm being too precious with this classic idea of Superman, but that's what I feel this character needs to be. And if you want something grimdark or you want something authoritarian, we have other comics for that, and we have satire for that, and we have other ways. You don't need to pollute Superman because people who aren't really comics fans want to see Superman punch that guy in the face. I don't know, if that guy said something to me like that, I would just punch him because I'm Superman. That would be more realistic, is Superman punch that guy. Because Superman. Let me just scroll up here. Sorry. Aditi Anil, no spoilers one. I've yet to watch it, but yes, Superman, love. Roth Sathi saying, I believe in Gunn's vision for Supes. I'm on board. He won me over. I hope to see some good follow-ups from this, and I hope he can do what he says. Superman should be a big, corny, bright, happy movie about love. Batman can be grimdark. It's okay. It's okay to take comics grimdark when the character is grimdark. So I'm hoping he really will give us different feels excuse me, for different characters. Simon says, Hypno, sticking up for those in a weaker position than ourselves is so damn woke. H2 Otaku, when superheroes actually want to help people regardless of who they are, that is woke and it will not be tolerated. Superman should only help people who pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Simon says, Hypno, Superman fought fascists. Hate Superman, love fascists? Is that really what we're saying? From the Bionic Scoop, I've always struggled with the propaganda piece created superheroes brought to life because the nuance is gone now. And there isn't nuance. That's what's so galling. X-Men, there's no nuance about X-Men. Superman, there is no nuance about Superman. These characters were incredibly woke for their time, and they were ways that we could teach kids good life lessons, right? Like there was this link between Superman and the Boy Scouts. Trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And that's Superman, right? That's the Boy Scout creed. Okay, people, don't discriminate against those different than you. Oh, Superman went woke. Yeah, in 1933. Rod Sathi. I'm also reminded of the Nokia Lumia 925 that was in promotion with Snyder's Man of Steel. And Gabaletta, and I hope people understand my complaints with Superman are not the actor. I feel Snyder deserves all of the blame for the Snyderverse Superman stories being completely tone deaf. But Gabaletta also saying it's a shame, really, because Henry Cavill was such a great cast, but ruined by terrible writing and terrible directing. Henry Cavill is so fun and goofy and charming, and he could have given us an incredible Clark Kent. And you see him in other films, like in Witcher, like the begrudging, gruff character that he plays in The Witcher, Geralt. And you're like, I could see a Superman who's maybe just a little chiller, like a little grin on his face, but you know, he's composed and he's disciplined. And Snyder didn't give us a disciplined Superman. He gave us an angry, reactionary, authoritarian Superman. If we had because the movie I'm thinking of is Enola Holmes. Henry Cavill plays Sherlock Holmes, and he's fun and he's kind of sexy and he's smart and he's clever, and you're like, that should have been our Clark Kent. And Geralt is gruff and authoritarian but reserved and disciplined, and that could have been our Superman. Henry Cavill should have been able to nail this, and it's not his fault that the movie's tone was just completely inappropriate for Superman. Bionic Scoop, which is hilarious because traditionally Superman is a terrible fighter if equally matched in power. Like, so many missed opportunities. I'll keep preaching this till the day I die. In Man of Steel, there are two key moments where you know the filmmakers don't understand Superman. The first is when Pa Kent gets sucked up by a tornado. That is the definition of a Superboy story. Every Superboy story is, how do I save the day without showing people I've got superpowers? And Superboy is clever, so he comes up with a solution. Literally, in that sequence, you've got all these cars, all these people are hidden under an overpass, and Superboy could have used his heat ray vision to blow up some cars, and while everybody's distracted with cars blowing up, why would cars be blowing up? He runs in and he saves his dad, and his dad gives him a lecture like that was dangerous. But thank you for saving me, son. We've got to work together to make sure we can keep you safe. You don't let your dad just get sucked up by a tornado. That's a Superboy comic right there. How do I save the day but not call attention to myself? So now we have a Clark Kent who's not clever, and he lets everyone else define his world for him. His dad said, "Don't save me, son. Noble sacrifice for no reason." And he just sat there and let it happen. Then Zod comes in at the end of the movie, and Zod says, either you die or I die. So Zod sets the rules of engagement. So Superman kills Zod. Spoilers if you haven't seen Man of Steel. So Zod wins. Zod won. Superman couldn't figure out an alternative to I die or you die. He's that dumb. He's not clever at all. So Zod wins. Zod defined the rules of engagement, Zod defined the terms, Zod defined the conflict, and Zod got what he wanted. One of us is gonna die today. Superman failed. Well, see, he won. That's why the movie's called Man of Steel, because he's not actually Superman yet. He's got to learn like how to be a superhero. And so at the end of the movie, he's still just a reactionary, whiny crybaby in Man of Steel. He's not Superman yet. And what I wanted desperately was to see a scene almost exactly like what they shot. Zod's laser eyes are about to torch a couple of innocent bystanders. And even though we've destroyed Metropolis, now we care about these 3 people in like a bank or something. And Clark has Zod in a headlock, but Zod is inching his heat vision towards these people. And in that moment, I really thought, I'm sitting there in the theater, I really thought, oh, this is it. This is the moment where Snyder is going to be clever. And Superman is going to realize, just like my dad, it's not your way. I'm going to define this. And I thought what we were going to get is something like maybe he has to put his hands through this heat vision and it's excruciatingly painful, this Kryptonian laser vision. And he's just forcing his hand through this laser vision and then he gouges out Zod's eyes. But he doesn't kill Zod. It wasn't me or you to die, but I still defeated you. And I did it on my own terms. I'm my own man. I'm Superman. And we couldn't even get that. So, James Gunn's Superman is a heck of a lot smarter and a lot more clever than Snyder's Superman. Oh yeah, Brian Glaze, the fact that people don't understand that most heroes in comic stories are social commentary is disturbing. Simon says, no, exactly. It's like people who are crying over woke Star Trek. You know, Star Trek, the television show from the 60s talking about civil rights issues. That Star Trek. Oh, it's just got so woke. From Ken X, Snyder was trying to do the Frank Miller version of Superman. It doesn't seem to work for the Justice League series. And my experiences with Frank Miller are more in line with Batman. I think Frank Miller's proto-fascist style of writing, where everything liberals do is going to destroy humanity and society, I think it actually works for a man who has been tortured by the memory of seeing his parents murdered in front of him. Like, I think that works. I think Punisher works as kind of an authoritarian, fascist adjacent kind of character. I decide who lives or dies. I decide who gets punched in the face. And it's all from the trauma. The trauma begets more trauma. And I think that's interesting in a Batman story. I think it's interesting in a Punisher story. And I think Frank Miller's voice works so much better there. Doesn't work for Superman. I don't think Frank Miller can write a good Superman. I just don't think he identifies with the character in a way that brings to light what could be interesting in a Superman story. Oh yeah, Goat V8. Superman and Lois had a great portrayal of Superman. Clark made me love the character. This one further that. Completely agree. And again, you can have the fond memories. I don't like the actor anymore. Dean Cain became a doofus talking, oh, Superman was so woke. My Superman wasn't woke, except that it was like another goofy Lois and Clark TV show. Your Superman was totally woke, Dean Cain. You just got to get over that. Yup. Bionic Scoop, Omni-Man, Ultraman, Brightburn, Sentry, The Void. So many great authoritarian super figures that are like Superman. You don't need to pollute Superman. Like, you've got them. Read if that's what you cared about, go read those other comics or go and read the original Watchmen again. Like, you've got all of this grown up shades of gray, grim dark, realistic, grounded depictions of vigilantes. Go read any of those. You don't need to do this to Superman. Superman should be safe for like 7-year-olds. So Simon says, no, I want to highlight your comment here. Simon Says Hypno says the best Superman is still Christopher Reeve. Even Quest for Peace, Superman 4, is unintentionally a classic. I love Superman 4. It is a terrible movie. But what if we took the ideas in Superman 4 and we made a good movie out of that? The beginning of Superman 4 is Superman saying, I'm going to rid the world of nuclear weapons. And then he does it. He unilaterally decides for humanity, this is going to happen. Now, Superman 4 is a terrible movie where we don't explore the consequences of Superman's actions. But the beginning of James Gunn's Superman is Superman saying, I'm going to stop a war between two countries. And he unilaterally acts, altering the political dispute between two countries. Now, most of us, I think, would agree. I think it's a good thing when countries don't fight wars. But of course, we live in this society that has to make it really politically complicated, that one individual took away the governance and the agency of two countries on the brink of war. So just like Superman 4, we start with a political conflict, but unlike Superman 4, James Gunn's Superman at least talks about the ramifications and the scrutiny and the fear that other countries see when Superman can just intimidate world leaders and get them to stop doing things. James Gunn's Superman is a competent remake of the worst Christopher Reeve Superman film. It is, what if we took Superman 4, but we made it good? And it is so good. It's real good. Legit. I'm probably going to go see Superman again in theaters. I enjoyed it immensely. Yep, absolutely. Morlock, agreed. Superman is OP, but shows more strength through compassion and restraint instead of using his abilities. Spot on. Couldn't have said it better myself, Morlock. H2 Otaku. To be honest, a Superman that is actually a great person and tries to help people are what you need to be able to compete with anime. Otherwise, Demon Slayer clears pretty much every comic book movie. You know, and I feel like that's why a lot of Marvel films, I agree with you, by the way, there's a lot of anime that I feel like, man, I wish this were broader and had a little bit more interest outside of its kind of fan bases here. I feel that's kind of one of the reasons why Marvel films have felt so stale, is that we only seem to have a couple of cookie cutter templates and only a handful of individual hero journey stories. And this is why I'm kind of desperate. I don't know that James Gunn can pull this off, but looking at Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and Superman, I'm hoping he can try to deliver what he's promising. Every character should have its own unique feel. I'm hoping we get a good detective noir movie. I'm hoping we get a good wacky cosmic adventure. I'm hoping we get a drama. Just a legit on the rails, no like superpowers, but they're based on comic book characters drama. I'm hoping we can get a movie in the DC universe that's maybe more of a romance. There's no reason why we couldn't be exploring every genre, because comics touch on every genre. I don't know that Gunn really does have the capital to pull this off, but he's the closest we'll get. He's one of the few filmmakers out there right now who I believe has the reputation and has the momentum to at least try. That a Wonder Woman movie shouldn't feel like a Superman movie, which shouldn't feel like a Green Lantern movie, which shouldn't feel like Shazam. We gotta shake it up. We gotta do something more, something different. Oh, Aditya, yeah, it's like the perfect way I feel to introduce people to this character. Aditya says, Justice League Unlimited animated series, oh man, merely mentioning it brings tears to my eyes, my childhood, that intro theme,
It's it's so good. And when it builds to that conflict with Darkseid, it is a defining moment for Superman as a character. I'm telling you, just go see that scene on YouTube. It's hilarious. Like the video that'll prop up first, I think still has like the burned in DivX, DIVX watermark in the bottom corner. It looks like terrible television compression. It's awful. But if you can watch that and not get goosebumps, then you have a colder heart than I do. I love that moment. It is and when you see it in the context of the show, how it builds up to that moment, it's even better. But literally just seeing that moment in a vacuum is just stunning storytelling. It's just absolutely incredible. Roth Sathi, I had hopes for the Superman Returns film back in '06. Haha. My wife was working at the talent agency that repped Brandon Routh, and they were really excited when he got Superman. That was a big deal for that talent agency, and it's a big deal for that actor too. I just feel like again the movie tried to give us the feeling of the Reeve films without the heart of the Reeve films. And John Gow asking, am I the only one who never got into Superman? So I didn't like Superman as a character when I was a kid. Because again, I was a dumb kid. Oh, if I were Superman, I would just go punch everybody, and I would use my laser vision, and I would blow that thing up. Because oh, Superman's dumb. He always like, oh, he just never tries to win a fight. So when I grew up, I was more into Batman. I really liked Iron Man. My dad was an Iron Man fan, so I got that by proxy too. But I'd say like my go-to characters were Spider-Man and the Flash. Quippy, fun, bright, vibrant, smart, clever characters. Then you start digging into Flash lore and you realize how important Flash has been to just the history of comics, let alone like the DC storylines and Flashpoint and Crisis and all those. And those are the characters that really lit me up. Spider-Man absolutely nailed. Like he's got real problems like I have real problems, and he's got superpowers, and his superpowers never seem to help him with his real life problems. And to me that really clicked. Like yeah, if I had superpowers, maybe that would maybe bring more problems than it would solve. I could beat up the bully. Oh, but then I accidentally killed that guy. From Malik. So Snyder gave us Injustice Superman. Literally, like in the teases for where like Justice League would have gone in the future, the dystopian future. Yes, that's what they were drawing from is like an other version of Superman who's so upset because my parents are dead and now Lois is dead and now I must kill everyone. And that's not Superman. Yes, it's Injustice. It's a storyline that we can examine, but it's like the least interesting way to look at Superman as a character, in my opinion. Is it like, what if we just took away everything that made Superman Superman? Well, then you would have Invincible and Omni Man. You already have that story. Go read Invincible. And now you have a Superman who is not kind and compassionate. You don't need to do it to Superman. At Bionic Scoop, Superman 2, Clever Clark wins. But tell me again, Superman 2, Christopher Reeve, one of the all-time best moments in a movie when he can't hide who he is anymore. And he's doing this thing, his hunched shoulders, and his Clark is such a buffoon and can't like move his arms from his elbows. And then he finally can't keep lying to Lois. And all he does is straighten up his back. And Reeve nails that moment. He goes from Clark, oh, I hurt my hand. Oh, no, don't look at it. Don't look at it. And then he just stands up straight. And he knows the gig is up. He knows he can't lie anymore. And he has to tell Lois the truth. And you just see a completely different character in a moment of him just straightening his back. Brilliant. Brilliant. No special effects, no camera tricks. No, he's like, Christopher Reeve just stands up straight. That's good storytelling, kids. Let me tell you about movies from my day. Marilyn, right there with you. It's still all-time best. Absolutely love Christopher Reeve as Superman. Complete. Totally. Oh, and Huffin' Puffin. Yeah, love Smallville back in the day. I think it did a great job of showing the audience the background and upbringing of Clark Kent that developed him into the type of Superman he should be. So now imagine a Smallville storyline where Clark has to try and save someone but not give up that he has superpowers. Wasn't that like every week of Smallville? And Snyder couldn't write that into a Superman movie. So I hate it when like, so this is also one of the problems I had with Ironheart is where people who aren't that clever about the science and the technology tried to write characters who are supposed to be geniuses at science and technology. Snyder set up this impossible situation. A tornado is gonna kill Pa Kent. But that's not what kills Pa Kent in most tellings of Superman. It's that for all of his godly powers, Superman has to learn this lesson that he can't save his dad from something like cancer or a heart attack, depending on what era of Superman you're dealing with. Superman absolutely could save his dad from a tornado. Smallville had stories like that every single week. And Snyder couldn't write that into a movie. Think about learning this lesson. Clark is just so clever and he disobeys his father and he blows up some cars and he runs out and saves his dad from the tornado and his dad's super upset. But the stress of that day, he couldn't handle and his heart gives out. And so even though Clark saves Superman's dad from a tornado, he loses his dad that night from the stress and the pressure and the fear. What if people found out who my son is? What if they take him away from me? And Clark then has to realize and cope with my godlike physical powers still couldn't save my dad. What if that had been what Snyder put in the movie? Doesn't matter how powerful you are, that there's a finality, there's a mortality, there's a respect for life. Life is fragile. You're gonna get into a situation, kid, where your strength isn't gonna save the day. Snyder couldn't give us that. What are we doing? Yep, Gabaletta, the restraint of Superman is what makes his character so polarizing and riveting. It's not about how powerful he is, it's how human he has become, that any action he takes has repercussions. I feel like that's the note to go out on. If you haven't, I'm putting in the recommendation, even for some of the pacing and structure flaws, and for a few corny moments that even had me eye-rolling, James Gunn gets us to a Superman that I think is respectful of the character and brings the character back to what I think that character should represent. I would say the Superman, even though it does have kind of what is it, PG-13, I think is the rating? Or is it PG? I can't remember. Even for a couple dark moments, I would say that this is pretty safe for kids like 10 and up. Lex did have issues with one scene in particular, but on the whole rest of the movie, she loved the whole rest of the movie. It's family popcorn time. It's a good summer action popcorn, soda, slushy kind of movie. And I think you should try to see it in theaters if you can, if you have access to a good theater that's gonna have a good screen, good projector, all that stuff. So I think we should wrap this up because I went almost 3 hours and my voice is actively failing. So stay tuned. I've got a ton of stuff coming out soon. I have Vivo Ultra camera stuff to talk about. I've got comparisons. I've got Vivo FE stuff to talk about. We did get some battery tech out, but I'm also going to be talking about some home appliance situations that might help you make a purchasing decision on something like a generator or a battery. I've got some wearable stuff coming out. We definitely have more audio to talk about, other earbuds that I think people will really like. And yeah, thanks for jumping in. Thanks for being on this ride. I knew this week I was all lit up to talk about stuff. So I'm glad that there was some good energy and this chat was really fun. So catch you back next week. Take care of yourself so you can keep taking care of others just like Superman would want you to. And I'll catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe. I love you all. and I'll catch you back.